That?
Oh, yeah.
Do we get to hear the other side?
And what?
Like,
Yeah, the other side is go to the ODA.
We can talk about it. I
how?
am providing it
Next
to the
page,
board
you
for
can
transparency.
have it on
I think
hand.
that's what they wanted, so that's why it's leaving.
Okay.
Okay, I know we have Catherine, we have Chris from Bosch. I think whenever you're ready, Celeste, and here's your hammer
Okay.
in case you need it. Hey, what were you guys supposed to tell me?
Start recording.
Yeah, you forgot. I beat you to it, so no $1 million for you.
Recording in progress.
All right. I'd like to call, do I have to gavel because I'm calling it in order?
I'm gonna let you make those big decisions.
Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Declaration of any conflicts of interest. Kyle?
No, and for the record, the board knows that I'm an advocate for AEDs, or at least evangelist for AEDs, and I have no financial interest in any AED manufacturer, distributor. I have no stock in any AED companies. No conflict.
Sue?
No.
Mike?
Don't believe so, no ma'am.
Catherine?
I'd just like to restate that I have the potential to be perceived to have a conflict of interest because I work for the school district, but I have no financial gain in anything, so there we go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And we have the recognition of the Employee of the Month for February, and that's Isaiah Collins. Hi, Isaiah. Thank you. So Isaiah Collins is our Employee of the Month for the month of February. Isaiah has been with our district since the fall of 2018 as a lifeguard, and in January of 2022 moved into the role of network administrator. Isaiah is a hard worker and an amazing problem solver. There are very rarely issues that I hand to Isaiah that he cannot solve. Well, I didn't hand, I suppose that's fair. Darren hands to Isaiah that he cannot solve with grit and determination. He is a compassionate individual who is highly respected by his coworkers and always displays a desire to help others whenever he can. He is very deserving of this honor and much more. Congratulations, Isaiah.
You know, when I came on board in October, November, Isaiah got me set up on the email, and it was awesome. It was very painless. He did a great job.
January or February?
So we're announcing the last month's winner.
So it's January.
Yeah.
So, Isaiah, I don't know if you heard that, but you just got kudos for making email set up on
Yeah,
the
thank you for that.
Oh, yeah, painless, so thank you for that. Very good. Public comment.
Oh, hang on one second. I think we have Marty to offer public comment. Is that right, Marty?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Hey,
can.
Marty.
Oh, excellent, wow, this newfangled technology. Marty Weiss here, Seaside. Recently, I've been in touch with Celeste. I want to thank you for your email, Celeste, regarding the lap pool has not been vacuumed for several weeks, probably going into a couple of months. I don't know why apparently the vacuum is broken. I know that's not a big deal, but in the scheme of things, it is. Celeste, you assured me that monies weren't taken from one area to pay for something else in another area, and I understand that. And so my question would be, why isn't there money put aside to fix the vacuum? We just spent $50,000 on a climbing wall and a bungee jump cord to the pool, and yet we don't have the money to maintain essential equipment, which is the vacuum. We spent back in 17-18, $175,000 to Opsis Architects to come up with plans for the recreation center, which the voters voted down, and those plans were never used. I also question why we have to employ yet another consultant for the recreation center when in fact plans were already put together by OPSIS. Again, the concentration seems to be on growing. We're doing a strategic plan. Now we're going to be in with the school district to move the building that had no authorization to begin with. Skylar took it upon himself to go into an agreement. And the building, that's the Hershey Family Athletic Building, whatever it is, was never authorized by the board. The board never knew about it, and nor the district patrons. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, yes, that building was erected. Now we're going to be paying to have it moved. I mean, I hope not. I hope the district isn't going to be paying anything to have it moved. Like I said, the patrons nor the board never authorized the construction of that building. It seems to me that the focus is not on keeping things running smoothly that we already have, like a vacuum to the pool, but on expanding. I don't know if maybe Skylar wants to make a name for himself in the community, that he created another LA Fitness in this like facility in Seaside. I also have a question for the board. I don't know if they are aware, members of the board are aware that Ashley Wolf brings her toddler son to work with her. This has been going on since the baby was born almost 2 years ago. And I would like to know how she gets her job done, hauling her little boy around. I don't know if the board knows that he's even going there with her, but he's there for the last year and a half. He's been there with her every day. So again, and I wonder about the liability of that situation as well for the district.
Thanks for your comment, Marty. I appreciate it, and we'll take it
Thank you.
under consideration. Thanks.
So what's happening with the vacuum? Can you tell me? Is it going to be fixed or?
So part of the challenge, Marty, is during public comments, as is true with other governmental entities, is during public comment, it's time for you to comment, but not a time for back and forth discussion. So
Okay.
I'd be happy to try to follow up with you offline on some of the stuff that you bring forward, but it doesn't give the opportunity for the board to respond with one voice.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. Thank you.
All right. Any other public comment, Skylar?
I don't see anyone else on Zoom, and the individuals in the audience would be welcome to offer public comment, but I'm assuming they're here for a different purpose.
All right.
So, I guess not.
All right. It looks like we have some correspondence from Hampton Lumber regarding the timber tax revenue.
Yeah, if I can just offer a little preamble here, and wanted to include this in correspondence for the board to review as visibility. Obviously, if you've been reading the news, there's a this much discussed topic regarding the Oregon Department of Forestry's forest management plan that would change the way that counties and special districts receive funds from timber harvest in their area. The district receives, SEPRD receives a small amount of timber tax revenue every year. In the past few years, it's ranged anywhere from $20,000 to $70,000 or $80,000, but typically we don't know how much we're going to get. We're one of the smaller beneficiaries of timber tax revenue in comparison to the county or some of the other special districts. But there's an significant effort being made by folks that oppose the forestry management plan. I'm not here to advocate a position one way or the other, but to bring visibility to this documents that were sent to me and ask that I share them with the board. I think there are some options if the board would like to get involved. We could contact the Department of Forestry board. We could write letters to other folks that might have an interest in advocating on our behalf. But I know there's the Clatsop County and there's other special districts in our area that are very concerned with the loss of some of this timber tax revenue. So just, again, providing it for visibility, happy to answer questions or take action if the board would like.
I have a question. It seems to me a few years ago, there was a lawsuit, I think it initiated in Lane County.
That's correct, yeah.
And then, the state was somehow mismanaging, I think, Lane County's assets, forest assets.
Yeah.
And I don't exactly recall how that turned out, but this is related to that?
I think
process?
unrelated, but the same topic.
Okay.
And that lawsuit, yeah, it went forward, and I think our county signed off and a number of special districts signed off. We opted out of that lawsuit. We had the option, but the board at the time decided to opt out of the suit. I don't think there's been any funds dispersed, but I think the suit was successful. But it seems now that this new forestry management plan would significantly change how much timber is harvested in areas. And it does seem, from what I've read, that Clatsop County would be more impacted than some of the other counties.
I had heard that lawsuit had been thrown out in court, and that that actually never was really resolved, even though there was a vote on it.
Huh. Yeah.
But I'm not sure. This habitat conservation plan is interesting, and the county has, become aware of the shortfall they will have on timber tax this year. The county budget is pretty dependent on timber revenue, and so is Astoria, for that matter.
So the comment period ends March 6th, so we would have to
Yeah.
come to a conclusion tonight, basically.
Yeah, or soon. I think we passed a legislative resolution a few months ago that would potentially be applicable in this situation, where it would authorize, in a short timeline, it would authorize myself to, I think, work with Celeste was the individual that was appointed by the board. If you wanted me to draft a letter, what I would probably do is draft that letter based on your feedback or your recommendation and your wishes, and then Celeste would be able to approve it for the board, and then we would be able to get it sent off. I'm not advocating that that's the direction we go. I'm, again, simply just providing this for visibility, and there's lots of folks that are concerned about this conservation plan, and there's certainly folks on the other side that are in favor of the conservation plan changing from what it is currently.
I have some contacts with county forestry people. If the board would like someone who is knowledgeable in forestry practices in our area, I could have them come and speak to the board and invite them to contact you.
Yeah. I've been in some of those regular meetings with county and other special district folks that receive timber tax, and also been in contact with a colleague at Hampton Mills that produced these documents. But yeah, it kind of, like I said, I feel like I've done my part. I'm not in the position to advocate action either way, so I'll leave that in the capable hands of you.
Do we have an interest other than financial?
Well, I think, I guess as a personal citizen of the world, of the county, I think there is an interest because there's a recreation benefit to having space available in this land, and I don't know how this plan necessarily impacts recreation. These aren't necessarily park and recreation programs, but I think we have a duty and obligation to advocate for recreation space for all people, even if it's not a SEPRD program, but space to go up and go for a hike or go for a mountain bike or hunt or fish or whatever is taking place on those lands. I don't know how, like I said, I don't know how this plan interests that, but I would say that's the only other kind of channel that we have some application to this.
I read through this more than once. I've got like 2 dozen questions, and we're not going to answer them here. I'm not even going to ask them, but I wish we had the other side to balance this opinion.
Yeah.
and this information. And so I understand March 6th is, coming. And so, having somebody coming to talk to us, I don't know how they're going to do that before I mean, March 8th and 9th is the meeting, in
Well,
Corvallis.
yeah, I could even, we could even just ask them to draft a letter. But, my personal view is, as far as the district is concerned, is that we don't rely on timber taxes to a great degree. And we usually budget pretty low for that. And if there was a shortfall, I don't know if we'd be impacted. What do you think, Scott?
I think the impact would be pretty sort of negligible. For us, just because we don't receive a significant impact.
On one of these
source of
pages,
revenue.
it says 39% of the taxing districts go to what I expect is special districts, I mean, it's, so I didn't know how they arrived at that, but.
Yeah, so the county, from what I understand, the county has a formula for every dollar that they get, how it's allocated. And we're part of that 39%, but, our portion is just, it's not substantial.
We're a rounding error.
Yeah. And to be honest, we get tax from, there's other tax sources, built into the county code, like, what's the one that we just got, like a heavy equipment tax. So if you rent a piece of heavy equipment, or maybe even buy it in the county, then a small, and so we're getting like $2,000 from that or something. So timber tax is a little more substantial than that, but it doesn't, if it went away, it wouldn't necessarily impact our budget significantly in any way, or if it was diminished.
And when does the timber tax money come in?
There's 3 times in a year. It's usually November, I want to say, maybe March and then June.
How much impact would any letter that we write have on this process?
From what I understand, probably not much. I think, but it would add. It would likely add to the other special districts and local governments that have voiced strong opposition to the new plan. And I think that the county has been kind of leading that effort because it impacts them significantly, but there's also, I think, effort by some of the school districts to, advocate for themselves and either for the plan to be changed or to a different funding source be made available to them. And I think I should say not all of the folks are interested in the management plan changing, but they are interested or wish that the county or the state, the Department of Forestry or the state would find other resources to make up for what is sure to be a shortfall in budgets because of this change. So it's kind of like they're withdrawing, a good source of funding, but not necessarily providing it.
It sounds like part of the concern was the county's process, or the state's process, that it wasn't very transparent, and I think there's some concern that maybe there are some better ideas out there that they just don't have the referrals from the.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. That has been a theme though that I've heard. Yeah.
So,
I can go either way, but I do appreciate Skylar's comments about we're a recreation district, but that doesn't mean that recreation has to take place within the walls of the buildings. I mean, I think there's some value to that. I think there's some value to the financial piece, albeit not very much. But I don't want to task Skylar with writing a letter. I don't want to use up his time if it's not going to have any real effect.
I think this presentation only gives one side.
It's true.
And so it's not really fair to ask Skylar to comment because we don't have both sides.
But from the values of Parks District, we value recreation. And I think he could say that irrespective of the pieces in here, whether it takes place in the forest or on the beach or in the gym.
Well, it sounds like that's already been done by other districts. So what you thought?
I think, at least from what I've heard, the advocacy has taken place mostly on the financial repercussions of the management plan, and not necessarily on recreation or other impacts.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but my read of it was that the recreation may be counter to.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah,
and
that's
so I think there's two sides to this, as Sue is saying, I'm not sure we have the bandwidth or frankly, the stake in
Mhm.
this issue for
I
us
agree.
to take the time to,
We don't know if there's any impact on
Yeah.
recreation. Westwood is still gonna have their bike trails and access that they have, I'm sure, but, I don't know, if they're staffing or the way they monitor that, or how people register for.
Yeah, there's a really good
Fire
system
safety issues.
I think it's called Greenwood Resources, and yeah, you can get a permit really easily on their website, and you're supposed to carry that with you when you're up on their land. There is parts of their land that are closed at times, but I think the system works really well for those folks that want to get up into that space and mountain bike or walk or run.
so seeing that we have a long agenda today, and without a motion on the table to move this one forward, shall we move on to the next item?
Move on.
Okay. Approval of board meeting minutes?
The only thing I changed, I told Skylar about at the last minute, was to fix the year on page 2, under the Broadway field update.
Good catch, Sue. Anyone like to offer a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor of approving the board minutes from January 24th, 2023, say aye. Kyle?
Aye.
Oh, Sue?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Catherine?
I-
Said aye.
Oh, she pulled it
We've
back
passed,
on us.
okay.
I wanted to comment, if you are talking to Rick, he amended that letter with all the typos and
Yes,
stuff,
he did.
and I was very grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think I want to say he had it to us like the next day.
Yeah,
I think
he
was-
did. I mean, I
he
thought
was-
pretty
yeah,
quick.
he was really prompt, so that was great.
I mean, that impressed me.
Suitably embarrassed.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I had all those questions for him, because, it shouldn't have come to anyone like that.
All right, next item on our agenda is to review financials, the January financials.
A couple questions. So I'm looking at this page,
Okay.
and, under BRF staffing, we're always been a fraction of our budget,
Yeah.
and that's because the field hasn't been open?
No, it's not. It's, Chris and I were just chatting about this today. We have staff that are working on the field daily, but it's a process of asking them to clock out of their other job
It's
code.
a coding, it's a
Yeah.
coding issue now, okay.
So I think we're on the path towards improvement, but we're not there yet.
So that's the same answer for the SRC staffing down there?
That one's a little different because of occupancy. When we first put it together, we had a bigger plan of, being 20, like 12, 13 hours a day.
Yeah.
And now we're not at that point. We're only doing just the bare minimum, at the front desk level.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think Chris is right. When we were doing the budget, we were very optimistic about how long the occupancy process would take us, and that we would be open, well before now,
Mhm.
and have more programs and stuff in the building, and therefore our staffing costs have been higher.
Fair enough. So then we're 7 months in, and we're at 45% of expenses. So do we defer certain purchases till after the tax money comes in?
We typically do, yeah, especially from that July 1 till October, November, just because we want to, make
You
it.
don't want to have to borrow money.
Yeah, we've been, I wouldn't say we're not throwing money around in any way. But yeah, some of the projects that we had budgeted for, we're undertaking right now, or have plans to undertake in the next few months, like maintenance projects and other expenses that we had budgeted. But I do think, talking to Darren a little bit about this today, as we're working on next year's budget, I think we're going to be able to project a really healthy carry forward. And it's good because we have some bigger ticket items that are probably gonna come up in the next budget cycle that we'll need to have resources for and figure out where those resources are gonna come from.
So we're at 40%, we should be something over, close to 60%. And, so soft landing, that's where I'm going,
Yeah.
soft landing.
Yeah.
But I just was asking, you know, on recreation, on line, 5, you know, the remaining budget, when we're, you know, 58% through the year, where do any funds go toward recreation to take care of the rest of the last few months of the year?
Yeah, so that, and I think you're looking at revenues, which is, we basically generated more revenue than we were budgeting for, but I think a lot of that has to do with some grants that we received and some other opportunities that we've been able to tap into in our recreation budget. So we'll continue, that line item is gonna get probably only worse as the budget year goes on, but it's actually a good thing because we're just bringing in more money than we had budgeted for.
I noticed that Chris has made an adjustment on that Sunset Recreation Center.
Yeah, we made the transfer over.
Seemed a little bit off balance last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Some
just had this
transfer.
transfer, yeah. We usually wait till about.
It looks pretty darn good right now.
Yeah, now.
Considering where we are.
Yeah, same with the building fund as well, at their transfer, part of it, and their movements.
I didn't hear that.
Oh, we also did the building fund transfer, so that one's at 100% now.
Mhm.
That one will be good.
Too far away from me, I'm sorry.
He's been saying this bill
Just that way.
transfer
Yeah.
20, it's line 25, that they actually implemented it,
Oh.
so it's now worth it.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just one, the personal services breakdown shows 46 and change FTEs. How many of those are full-time?
So right now we have 9 full-time staff, and we will have 10 in the next couple of weeks. We just made an offer to a events and recreation coordinator, and she's just gonna start in the next couple of weeks, so.
And then a grant writer still?
Yeah, so the grant writer position is actually funded through the foundation,
Okay.
supervised by district staff.
Okay, I was gonna ask about that
Yeah.
later, but, okay.
And I was curious on, what is Deere and Company?
So that was the gator for the Broadway field. So that one is split between us and 2 other partners. So we don't,
The gator is like an ATV that we can use to maintain the field and get around the grounds and.
So it is a John Deere.
John Deere.
Yeah, you know,
Okay. I'm like,
That's what color it is.
I thought you, yeah, John Deere green, like the song says. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I was noticing our power bill, $5,000, was that just for the pool or for all 3?
That's
Community
for-
center and the SRC or?
and the Merit
How does
Lake
that
as
work?
well.
It sounds like it's a combined bill
Yeah.
for the Mary Blake, the pool, and the SRC.
How much of an increase are we starting to see on power, for our power and
Just based on the SRC.
on the history?
I'm assuming. Yeah, I mean, we have seen a fairly big increase, but I think when we purchased the building, we had the option for participating in a Pacific Power program that we pay a little bit more in the summer, and that means our rates are a little lower than they probably should be in the winter. Overall, I want to say we're right in line with where we were last year, maybe
Yeah.
even a little less.
When Levi and Courtney went through quite a great effort of replacing a lot of the lighting, so it's all going a lot more, it's more efficient now. All of our hallway lights are, LED. I think the gym lights are now LED. That was a pretty big.
That's huge.
Yeah, so that's helped a lot. Yeah.
Those guys are doing a lot of
Yeah, they did a good job replacing all those.
No, the SDIS, now, I wanted just to ask, I heard at the SDIO conference that the SDIO can't compete with SDIS, and they're gonna go with SAFE, or go with, SAFE can't compete with SDIO or SDIS, and so that SAFE is a better deal, they're gonna make a transition?
Yeah, I
Insurance
haven't
to
heard
SAFE?
that. As you know, I wasn't able to attend the conference, but I guess that would be news
I
to us.
wonder how that works.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, what is the bank that I co-signed on a long time ago? Is that Columbia?
Yeah, so it is Columbia, soon to be, or is now becoming Umpqua.
So do we have to go
I don't think so, we haven't been
We're
told
all
that.
set.
Yeah,
Yeah, Darren and I got it all straightened up already. They've already transferred, just at least our forms and everything. That's very smooth merger so far.
So I don't have to go re-sign?
Nope.
Okay,
sound like it.
interesting.
Any other questions?
No, I think the financials are
Nice work.
in good shape.
Thank you, guys.
I move
Thank
we
you,
approve the
Darren.
financials.
I second.
Great, first and second, those in favor say aye. Kyle?
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Mike?
All right.
Catherine?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Motion. Next, we have a staff presentation from Haley, our HR and admin coordinator.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Haley.
Hi, Haley.
Sorry, one
No,
second.
you're-
Oh, great, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Oh, no.
Oh, we broke it.
How could that be?
Should I say what?
Looks like Polly's restarting.
Yeah, well, why does it always do this during the board meeting?
It's the only time it does it. Never does it during Rotary, does it?
It's me,
You can see the
me being in
presentation?
the presence of an electronic device.
Oh, no, I would, no.
Must have a very strong magnetic field, Kyle.
This entire board and Darren knows that if
Well,
I
we
was
only
out,
have it on the small screen, Catherine, so
there's
we'll
a
probably,
technical issue.
You should see me around.
we'll probably wait for.
Oh, I have such a fun
It's
story.
really trash those.
No, the first fax machine, fax ages ago in the eighties, we went to OMSI to fax something. I hand this man this document. My husband is standing next to me and we're just chatting. And the man comes out and hands the document back. And I say, I'm sorry, you were supposed to fax this. And he said, I did. I said, then how are you handing it back to me? And I am like, you have to get this sent off.
Yeah.
And he
Fax stands for facsimile, right?
Oh, well, I mean, literally, Mike is behind me just bubbling over because this guy is like, I don't know how to explain this. And I'm like, and I look at Mike, I'm like, why are you laughing? He says, I'll explain later.
What amazes me is I can't send an email to my doctor, they require a fax. It's like the most scientifically advanced profession in the world, and all I have is Nike net.
Who's your doctor?
But
I mean, no, I'm type.
Did you make, copies of your presentation? Is that what they have?
No, I didn't.
Where they-
They have copies of, from the event and rec.
Oh, cool, okay.
The presentation.
Sorry, we lost our Polly system. Apparently Catherine and the online people can see it, but all you guys can see right now is this little small screen. So we can wait until the system connects or Haley can get started and,
get started.
whatever you'd like, pretty good.
I mean, that's very pretty.
It was a really nice picture. And I only could find one that said, come again, Seaside, like nice and big. They didn't have a good one of the welcome to Seaside. So I put welcome on there. So I'm just really gonna start and talk about me. My name is Haley Wilding. I'm originally from Southern California. I grew up in Big Bear. I don't know if you know that.
I know.
Oh, look at that! So I was born and raised in Big Bear, River Lake, California. I stayed there for, oh, so yeah, California. I went to college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was just wasting a bunch of money. So I decided to join the Coast Guard because they told me to pay for my college. I was on the sailing ship, the Eagle, for about 2 years. So I went to Maine. Virginia, I sailed all through Europe, went to Germany, Denmark, all those fun places. I have a 2-year-old, her name is Natalie. Lovely little thing. I got my bachelor's in communications, also in Coast Guard, and I'm currently working on my master's in communications with an emphasis in leadership. That's me. Today I'm going to give you kind of a presentation of the history of Seaside. We're going to kind of switch it up and have a little fun presentation, and it'll go quick, and then we'll talk about the rest of the stuff. I took this book from the Seaside website. Just as Seaside is remembering what an amazing vacation feels like. I feel incredibly grateful to live here and to be a part of this community. It really does kind of feel like a vacation every day, even though it's raining and snowing, but it's been awesome. So, where it all started. Seaside was incorporated in 1899. So, one of the Native American tribes that was here originally is the Clacksock tribe. Their diet was seafood, game, berries, and roots. But unfortunately, fur traders and explorers brought in diseases and deadly smallpox. So by the time the Lewis and Clark expedition arrived, only about 250 members of the tribe remained. In November of 1805, the Lewis and Clark expedition set up camp at the mouth of the Columbia River. And later in January, so they got here in November, in December, they started making their way south and arrived here in January 1806. And they set up a salt work, and essentially a salt work harvests the salt from the ocean. And that salt was essential to curing their meat to be able to venture back. So once they set up their camp and everything, later down the road in 1899, Seaside was officially established as a town and incorporated. Gilbert was the mayor in 1912. He donated his own holdings to the town, which ended up creating our mile and a half long prom, the promenade. His original cottage is known as the Gilbert House, which couldn't find exactly where it is, but it's here in Seaside. This is just some interesting history along the way from Seaside. So, June 12th, 1942, 6 months after Pearl Harbor, the town witnessed the shelling of Fort Stevens by a Japanese submarine. In the following months to that, the town actually had drills. They had air raid drills. The lighthouse was actually extinguished for 2 months. The Tillamook Head Lighthouse was actually extinguished, so they could practice their dark times throughout the night. In 1955, a replica of the Salt Works was created by the Lions Club using sketches from the Lewis and Clark journals. The Salt Works is now a national monument on Lewis and Clark Way. In 1964, the most destructive tsunami to hit the U.S. flooded parts of Seaside. It was caused by a 9.2 magnitude earthquake, which hit near Alaska, sending waves all the way down the west coast. In 1970, they had archaeological digs that uncovered items that were over 2,000 years old, and the Seaside Museum has part of that collection on display. In 1987, a landslide from the western part of the Tillamook Head dumped boulders and debris into the sea, adding approximately 300 feet to the coast. It was originally only planned for 200 feet, so most of that parking lot was thanks to this.
I like that typo in there.
Oh, was it on there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Smart boulders.
So these are just some old pictures that I found. This apparently is Broadway, what we know now is Broadway. Here is the turnaround. This is kind of the salt works that they took the sketches from, that where they got the idea and stuff. And again, this is just the turnaround and just kind of an old photo.
I have never seen the upper quadrant right picture.
It said it was Broadway, and I looked, and there were 2 other ones that said it was Broadway, and I was like, okay.
Well, doesn't that sign say ocean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean,
and so I'm assuming, because it looks like there's a sign here, but I'm not quite sure, because those are horses,
Yeah.
so.
Interesting.
Everybody's wearing a hat.
Yeah. So today, our lovely Seaside is
That's a beautiful.
lovely view. Sorry, I'm just getting over a cold, so. today, well, in 2021, the population was 7,234 people. We have 3,441 households, approximately 368 businesses. That was, the last one that took was in 2017, so I'm not quite sure where that came from. But and then the median household income is $41,488. These are some fun facts of Oregon that I found out today. February 14th is 1859 is Oregon's birthday, so Valentine's Day. It is the 33rd state. Crater Lake is the deepest lake in the U.S. at 1,949 feet. Oregon produces 99% of the nation's hazelnut crops. I didn't know. And then Oregon state flag is the only flag to have a different design on each flag.
So there's, so there's the outline, the beavers on the one side, and then the outline of the state.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and they're the only state to do something like that.
That's unique.
So I was kind of something interesting. Yeah. Now, what I do all day instead of just putting presentations together, we actually just hired our event and recreation coordinator. She's going to be starting the 6th, which is next Monday. And I just kind of wanted to show you guys the process of how we did it, how we chose. We're very proud of our full-time staff. We're proud of all of our staff, but take a lot of pride in finding the right candidate for this full-time position. So the first page that you guys have is the presentation that the final candidates had to put together. They had to choose one of the events, and then essentially budget for it, and then make it better. And then they had to present on how they were going to do that. They were also given like a budget sheet to show us that they can budget for the program and stuff. So yeah, that's that first page. The second page is the initial interviews. During the initial interviews, we kind of just focused on experience, kind of just personality, why they felt like they were a good fit for the position. And then we went on to the final interview, which kind of more in depth of the experience, more in depth of personality, working with other people, so management styles and all that fun stuff. So we had 17 people apply totally. We had 9 people fully complete the application process. So fill out an application, send me a resume and a cover letter. We decided to interview for the initial all 9 of those people because they took the time to fully complete the whole process. After that, we put together kind of like a hiring committee, and it was composed of part-time staff and full-time staff, 2 managers, and the rest was part-time staff, and farmers market staff, pool staff, just everybody that this person would kind of interact with on a day-to-day basis. And then, so from our initial interviews, 8 out of the 9 people showed up, which was awesome. It was more than I hoped for, so that was good. And then we sent 5 to the final interview, and then 5 people did the presentation that you guys saw. During the presentation, we just kind of focused on how they would increase participation, because that was a big one for us. A few people kind of missed the mark on how they would increase the program. And so they made an awesome, like they would change some things, but just didn't quite hit that mark. And then they did a one-on-one with Skylar, and then they did a tour with Justin. So they kind of had a whole process of things. And then once all 5 of those people did their interview, we selected our top 2 and submitted those to Justin to decide on their new events decoration.
I'm curious, are for the person who won, what was her theme song? She was a wrestler.
I think it was Warrior by Sia, something like that. We kind of wanted to break up the questions. They felt a little, I wanted to stress them out too much. Give them a little break in between.
If this is stressing out, then I don't know.
Yeah.
One question.
And then, yeah, that's pretty much how that went. It was a really fun process. Obviously, I just started in November, so this is still all a very big learning curve for me, but I think everything went really well, and we found the right candidate for the job, and it's going to be super awesome watching these programs expand and make new things happen.
Have you made a selection?
Yes.
You
yes,
did
yes.
make a selection,
Yes.
so be introduced to that person
Soon.
soon.
Well, aren't you waiting for him or her to respond?
I think, I don't know if we got the signed agreement back. Yes, so I'll share that during the staffing update, but yeah, we're really excited about the candidate that we selected. We had a really, like Haley said, really good applicant pool, so it was a hard decision, but I think we got a great.
Nice work, Haley.
Yeah.
Nice.
I had a lot of help. It wasn't just me.
Great.
Any questions for Haley?
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't have to fill out something like this when I applied to be a board member.
You know, some of these questions,
It's a good question.
I was an employee with Providence for 35 years, and one of the managers said, we're starting a new process, and I'm gonna simply tell you, I want you to sit down and I'm gonna interview you. So a lot of these questions, she had me do. And I'm like, oh, I remember this, and it took like an hour and a half to answer.
Yeah, and some of the questions, and it totally depends on personality, how the questions get, like, answered. I just personally was looking for, like, specific examples of, like, some of those questions, but a lot of people had so much knowledge that they couldn't give me, like, a specific example, so it was just a wide range of, you know, all of their experience. So it was really interesting to kind of just assess personalities that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. This is a nice piece of work.
Yeah, I would just say it's all right that, that's not the only thing that Haley's helped us with. She probably undersold some of the things that she's provided to the district, but it's really nice having a strong HR and admin presence, and Haley's helped recruit for other positions, which has been great, and also work through some of those HR issues that an organization that has 50 or 60 employees experiences. It's been great to have her, and she's also been really great as part of our executive team, working with the directors and providing some perspective and kind of coordinating efforts and communication out. So thanks again, Haley, for your work and for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Haley.
I'm gonna go pick up my daughter.
Thank you. All right, let's see, on to old business, occupancy updates.
Yeah, so we have Chris and Brandon here as well, which is awesome, and I know they're gonna probably contribute for the next 3 items, but I'll just kind of set the table here, and Chris and Brandon can jump in, or board members if you have questions. So what you have before you is a proposal from Interface Engineering, and again, I think I've tried to share this out in correspondence to the board, but what we feel like is really crucial for the occupancy process at the Sunset Recreation Center is updating the fire alarm system. And so this proposal is from Interface Engineering, who did a full review of the current system, and Brandon can kind of walk you through some of their results, but I shared them in a summary email to you at the end of January, and this proposal is substantial. It's a fair amount of work, and it exceeds my spending capacity or my threshold. So that's why it's part of the board packet. But what I think I'm hoping for is a good discussion and review of this proposal, and then permission from the board or approval from the board that we move forward with Interface Engineering so that they can design the fire alarm system and help us advance that part of what the building needs to obtain that occupancy status. So there's probably more to it. I'm simplifying it for my own benefit because I'm not as smart as some of the experts that we've hired, probably not as smart as you guys either. That's why we have good people in the room. So Brandon or Chris, do you want to share a little more information if you think it's pertinent, or we can just have you available to answer questions if the board has them?
Yeah, a couple brief notes to add to that, Skylar. I will never cut yourself short like that, but separate from that, last update that we gave was that we had received the second round of plan review comments. We are in the midst of submitting that response back. It has taken some time, we're aware, but we have had some good progress. We've met with the city, and essentially we're being asked kind of to provide 2 buckets of information. One bucket is the low-hanging fruit, if you will, that just points to clarity as to how the SRC will be used in the future. And that's fairly easy to do. The other bucket that is gonna take some rolling up of the sleeves really points back to the life safety systems of the building. So in that second round of comments, we were asked kind of three key things with regards to the life safety systems. One was to look at the fire alarm system. Two was to look at the fire suppression, and three to look at ventilation. We felt it would be best suited to go bring in a separate engineering consultant that we work with and tons of projects, lots of work, and have them actually really dive into those systems and give us the full picture of where they're at currently. That report or study is what was provided and used in our last meeting with the city building department. God, how far has that report gone? Has it been just Cliff Notes version, or has
No, it's
seen it?
Both. Yeah, I provided kind of Cliff Notes version of the kind of the three things, the three categories that you described, but the board has also had the report sent to them via email. Yeah.
No, I won't go into the details on the specifics unless there's questions, but what we're asking now is to actually move forward with interface engineering. They have a fire alarm designer, suppression designer, and a mechanical engineer that are all going to give the design of the systems needed to bring the building into compliance. Each one of those is a different level of effort. The mechanical system work and the fire alarm work is substantial. It will take time to do that, and it is going to take some costs. So right now, we're telling the building department that we're moving forward with those efforts and asking for some grace in terms of the time it'll take to get that information resolved. The good part, the news out of the three concerns, is the suppression system is actually in really good condition and doesn't need a lot of work. We're going to do some isolated testing to determine if we need to swap some heads out, but for the most part, the building is fairly well protected in that sense. One thing I want to express to the board is the urgency and need to address the fire alarm. There is exposure there. Now that we have that full picture and understand where the system sits, we need to address that in some earnest, if that's helpful.
A couple of questions. Well, first, I've worked with interface engineering in the past, and they're awesome. They've done fire stations, and they do a lot of low voltage stuff. So I have confidence it's not about interface engineering. So the building is partially occupied now, right?
Correct.
So is the plan to fix all the life safety issues and then open it up all at once, or are we going to open up sections of the building as they become safe or as they comply with code?
Yeah, it's a great question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know that we fully know that answer, to be honest. Our goal is to keep you fully operational and bring the building department along with some of the provisions that we're going to have to do, the improvements. It's going to take time to address, the fire alarm issue, the mechanical issue. You're not going to get that done overnight, in a week, in a month. It's going to take time and planning. So we're hopeful that we can keep you operational during that time. To what extent and how far how much more into the building you can use and how much further you can go in terms of intensity use, it'll be a conversation that we're having over the next couple of months with the building department.
In the short term, will the city allow us to occupy those pieces that are occupied now if we take additional steps to protect the safety of the people inside? Before this is fully completed.
Yeah, and that was the previous conversation we had. And so these steps moving forward, I think, keeps us in a position that we're all trying to achieve the same goal, and would keep you in terms of the use you're doing now, would keep you, you'd be able to continue that, if that makes sense.
It's kind of our understanding, though, like now that we have this report and we're aware of the condition of the current system and its deficiencies or inadequacies, and the fire department and building department has that information too, because we've shared that with them. It's really essential that we move forward quickly, and they're willing to understand like our timing and that it's going to take our time, but, we can't really delay for any reason. You know, there's gonna be delays, there's gonna be timing, but, we need to move forward pretty quickly if we wanna keep using the building at the capacity that we're using it now.
Yes, so this is a change order between for the engineering firm and Scott Edwards Architecture, right?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
So our approval is authorizing Scott Edwards Architecture to charge us for this change order.
Yeah, I don't know if, yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
We are just passing through these services, if that makes sense.
Got it.
So Interface is saying, hey, here's the cost, we're just facilitating that work at this point. So, you know, when you read their proposal, it is addressed to us, but again, we're just gonna pass that through to you all.
So, in the original contract that we signed, the expenses were laid out, but there was no cap on expenses.
Yeah, I'd have to
There
go back and look at the
was a
contract,
cap on there was a cap on there was a dollar amount for the work that they were going to be performing, and then over and above that, reasonable expenses would be reimbursed.
Yeah.
Well, there's still no cap.
We give an estimated reimbursement amount, but it does not get capped.
Okay, I mean, I just want, from the board's perspective, we need to know what we're exposed to.
Well, my question is, I'm trying to understand how this wasn't seen originally.
Yeah, it's a great question. Something we've kind of toiled with a little bit too. So when we obtained ownership of the building, we did some work with our existing alarm servicer provider and asked for them to basically ensure that the building was up to snuff. And I think there was some work conducted, but it's unclear exactly what work was conducted, and it's also unclear if there was any coordination with the city of Seaside staff or the fire department to make sure that the alarm system was adequate. And so
The key points of that would be that looking back at it with what we know now, that service provider was really just trying to get the existing system operational, to get it to work to some degree. The disconnect was bringing the system to full compliance with current code, which is a very different effort. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, remember that there was a problem with some of the work done without a permit, and that was remediated.
yes.
And I'm just curious what an RFI, a DCVR is.
Yeah, no, that's great. An RFI is a request for information.
What's DCVR, do you know?
It's probably an acronym that this engineer is using for like a design clarification, because part of Interface's scope of work is that they're going to design the fire alarm system, and then they're going to help participate in the actual solicitation with like pre-bid and pre-construction meetings with applicable fire alarm companies that want to supply and install this. So they have some scope in terms of bidding and negotiations as well.
During that phase of the project, they're telling you that they're going to support the project and provide answers and clarifications to anything the contractor might need. So they'll support it through that phase, permitting and bidding, and through construction, quite frankly.
And then on the next page, it says that number 1, it is assumed that the final bidding of the project will not be done until receipt of permit, and issuance of 100% CD, is that cash on delivery? Or?
No, that acronym CD is for construction documents or contract documents. So those are that's the permit set that would get given to the city of Seaside and stamped and approved, and that's when the work would ultimately be able to begin.
Mike?
I have a question. Will all of this work having been done successfully, will the Park District receive as-bills for everything?
Yeah, now this work, just to clarify, this work is the design and layout, right? So once we have this on paper, what will happen is you'll go to a subcontractor, an installer, and they will then produce a drawing of the full system layout that gets permitted. So there'll be another step. In the end, yes, you would be provided a record drawing as built set from that contractor that shows you what was put where, and that any deviations from the design would be documented in that set as well.
Do some of these improvements include, upgrades like for alarms, like visual aids, flashing lights, sound horns, and different things to bring it into ADA compliance?
That's correct. All of that, yeah. So your strobes, your enunciation, all the controls, all of that. Yes, it's essentially a brand new, fully compliant fire alarm.
I think it's essential we do that.
So we're gonna expect a new bid for the actual work, right? I mean, for the actual implementation of whatever gets designed, right? So we would expect a second bid, on this. And do we have any kind of ballpark? Is there a range that we would know what that might be to expect? And I think partly we just need to, as a board, consider, at this point, we haven't done significant fundraising for improvements to this building. And we have to get this done.
Very rough order of magnitude number. Without an actual design, you're in the realm of $200,000 to $300,000 for a system of this size in this type of facility. And that's the loss. That's just.
We've got a lot of irons on the fire right now with some potential updating of our locker rooms in the near future. Would this fire alarm system be comprehensive or adaptable to a flexible new plan for our locker rooms and team rooms?
Yes.
That can also be used by the school?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I mean, the benefit here, again, having these three scopes of work kind of conversion to one that we're seeing, it really makes sure that the foresight can be had under each one of those projects. So yeah, what we have seen of some potential locker room improvements doesn't change anything with regards to the fire alarm suppression design at this point. I don't see anything there that would change it.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry, I misread some things here, and I'm just a little surprised at what I didn't look at. On that same exclusions, is there a significant cost change when you're talking about construction record drawings are not included, shop drawings, et cetera, number 6, number 7 are not included?
That's great, good questions. Those are excluded because they would be provided by the contractor. So the contractor, when we bid this out, part of the aspect in the bidding is that the contractor provides the final drawings that will be used for permit. Those drawings would then be reviewed by interface engineering for compliance with code and for compliance with the design that they laid out. So all of that work, the as-built, the shop drawings, all the fabrication funds would come from the contractor, not interface engineering.
And that's standard operating procedure, whether it's Johnson Controls, Simplex, or whomever is going to do this fire alarm work. It's normal.
Yeah. It sets you up for the most flexibility when it comes time to bid the project, to bid that work out.
So when I look at fee, construction documents of $12,800, of course, an estimate, that's separate from these other things up top under exclusions?
That's correct. Yeah, they probably should have used design documents and not construction, but they clearly need design.
Okay. And may I ask what an MEP and an ASI is?
Yeah, MEP is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and then ASI is architectural supplemental instructions. Lots of acronyms. Yeah, I know. I can give you a book with all the acronyms.
Nope.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah.
So guys,
essentially, essentially the services here would take you through the full installation of the project. That initial construction document fee that you see in the proposal is something that will spend, you know, in the immediate months. Bid negotiation and permitting would happen after that. Construction administration, I don't really have a good time frame on when you would be spending that money, but it would be out some time that's going to be needed to do the design and the bidding and all that. So you're 6 to 9 months out from really tapping into the rest of that construction administration fee.
So do we need to budget for at least part of this for next year?
Yeah.
For the construction piece of it?
Yeah, and I mean, we've discussed that a lot already in terms of the timing, and it's a little unclear how long this design would take and what the bidding process, the timeline of that. But I think our commitment, our public commitment, our commitment back to the city has been that we want to move forward as fast as possible. And so whether that's even using some of the funds that we have set aside in the SRC budget or in capital improvement currently in this current budget, or allocating funds next budget, or both, I think is really important. So.
Or securing new funds.
And also, securing those new funds.
So guys, one more question, and I'll be quiet, I promise. So once the bid is in for the construction of what you designed, what's your anticipated timeline for how long that will take? I know it might be really early right now to ask that question, but.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it takes 3 to 4 months to bid and permit something like this, once you have all the documentation. You know, to build out the system, you know, anywhere from 6 to 9 months potentially. You know, there's a lot there. They have to tear out what's there, so you have some demo. You're operational and you coordinate that. So.
Yeah, the only reason I ask is I'm trying to figure out how many budget years we have to plan this for. You know, so we got for the next 2 budget years, we got to be aligning the safety issues in that building. You know, repair.
And so, do we have any interim safety steps that we could be taking to mitigate risk, given that we now have things that we have a bright light shining on?
Yeah, that's a great question.
When we
have heard some concerns with what we would do in the interim. We don't know specifically what fire marshal, fire chief will require. Some things that have been thrown out, given that you have, you know, a pretty much an adequate suppression system, sprinkler system, they threw out things like fire watch, where you have to have, you know, people watching and monitoring. They'd like to understand some programmatic elements, like your hours of operations, when you have, you know, when you have events in the facility that are beyond those hours of operations. So some of those types of provisions would have to be put in place. They come in and ask for some additional exit signs in the interim. That kind of helps with directing people out of the building in the event of emergency. So there could be more improvements like that as we move through. Yes, but I do think there will be things that come down the line we have to do.
Go ahead, Sue.
Well, Mike, is there insurance that we have any insurance that we can go, you know, get some costs back from anybody?
Yeah, I don't know if that's an option. I mean, we have insurance.
It's part of the process.
But I don't know if our insurance provider would cover that, I guess.
Brandon, do we foresee, like, is this the big hurdle to getting occupancy? Is this sort of the last that we think? I know you can't tell everything that could come up, but do we think this is the sort of big hurdle?
Yeah, I really do. When you look at what's left with regards to the comments, this is the big glaring thing. Okay. We've been able to chip away at that block, the comment block. This second round, they had a handful of additional comments, which is pretty typical. But this is the last major issue, and of course, this is where the substantial cost and effort comes in. But this seems like this would get us over the hurdle of the occupancy.
Brandon, maybe that would be a good segue to, we talked about the fire suppression system. I know we're not trying to get into the details, but, you know, relatively in great shape. Potentially, we'd have to change out some heads, but we're gonna do some testing to figure that out, but overall, dollar-wise, not a big deal. Can you speak a little bit to the mechanical portion of fire life safety issues?
Yeah, the mechanical component is related to fresh air. So we're, based on the use of the space, we're required to provide a certain degree of fresh air into that environment. As you all know, the building has kind of 3 different ages to it, and so the mechanical systems within those different ages of the building are different. What we know now is that some of the bigger, the gym spaces, both the big gym and the auxiliary gym, you know, really don't have fresh air, don't have ventilation. Some of the old original classroom wing relied on mechanical ventilation, operable openings. The area that is operable now isn't sufficient to meet code criteria. So the mechanical system is kind of a piecemeal approach, and that is going to take a little bit of rolling up the sleeve to figure out. But it's not as important. It's not a life safety factor, right? The fire alarm and fire suppression is life safety. Fresh air ventilation isn't to that same degree. It's wellness, not life safety, if that makes sense. So in terms of the required time frame to make the improvements and changes, there's going to be more latitude in that. But quite frankly, if you remember the first report that was provided on the overall systems, that pointed to, you know, you're at the end of the life expectancy of these systems, and the recommendation was new mechanical throughout. You know, we're going to be able to probably put some Band-Aids on the ventilation system, but that is exactly what it is. It will be Band-Aids until we can get to a point where we revamp the whole system in itself. If we were to build a whole new, you know, build a new brand new building with the mechanical system we would envision, that's significantly more money, and you're adding, you know, a handful of more zeros to the fire alarm situation.
Yeah, but I think I don't know, I don't find it surprising that the mechanical was, I think we knew that there were issues, right, in the ages of the building, like that was all part of the due diligence in the purchasing of the building that we knew.
Yeah, we anticipated that.
We anticipated that, and I think part of it is this is why we're working with y'all to come to a plan about what we're gonna do and what the priorities are for the district to have an overall strategy regarding what we do with the building, and the mechanical, to me, seems like it's gonna be part of that equation. Depending on what we do, right? So.
The work that we'll have to do in the immediate is the areas in which the fire alarm and the mechanical system work together. So there's a few spaces where if in the event the alarm was triggered, the mechanical system would react a certain way. And so I would imagine that those provisions would have to be done in the short term rather than long-term plan.
Yeah.
So that's low-hanging fruit in my mind compared to a whole new system.
I think addressing these fire safety issues are a priority, and I move that we accept this change order.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Kyle?
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So thanks for all the information.
Yeah, maybe a few extra buckets of water in the corridor will help.
We will proceed ASAP on it. We'll get the engineers going so we can respond in quick time.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, next up is the Broadway Field update. So that's, I think, unless you want to give an update.
No, I
first,
think
or
it's
do you
great. I
want-
was just going to note that we have the superintendent, Susan Penrod, and
Welcome Susan to our meeting.
Brian Hardebeck from their project team. They asked, and we thought it was a good idea to have them be here to answer some questions that we might have, provide an update, but I think I'll turn the time back to you, Celeste and Mike.
Okay, very good. Welcome both, and thank you for making some time to sit with us today. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike to kick us off with some.
Well, we've had some very positive meetings, 3 meetings with the Design Advisory Committee and kind of a mini stakeholders meeting with staff. And and Susan Penrod and Brian Artebeck. We're kind of been working out some of the details of how we would proceed. Right now, we're looking at needing to approve the conditional use permit. And then we have a project timeline and financial costs and arrangement. There would need to be, we assume, some type of construction agreement regarding partnerships and insurances and operational types of issues. I wanted to ask, I'll save my questions. Overall, we're excited about the prospects of this project and contributing to the sports campus for the community and satisfying this improvement for girls softball in particular at this time. It kind of brings to fruition the 1939 Broadway Park vision, which took Broadway Park all the way to Roosevelt. So the cup will kind of open the door for ODOT, we understand, to review the traffic and access to the property and exit to the property. The fire district has made comment on requirements for access for hook and ladder and equipment to get to the back of the facilities. The other, it's a multi-step process. I'll let Celeste comment on some of these other things. And one of the questions I had would seem going into this, I assumed that, kind of reasonably assumed that there would be some type of capital authority set up for this project that would outline the budget areas and the areas of work. This would probably be a means of handling payments to various contractors and vendors. I'm wondering, as we pursue this, would there be an opportunity for SEPRD to bill into the capital authority for staff time and meetings or contributions from the district appropriate to the project? That's the only real question I have at this time on proceeding. Do you want to make any comments inserting here? I don't
Sure.
want to jump around.
Okay. So I think one of the things we've learned through the several meetings that we've had, and again, I want to thank the Seaside School District for opening up and responding to requests to have these meetings, because I think we needed more insight to be able to do our due diligence and to come back to the board. So thank you for having those meetings. Of course, there's lots of questions, but this is sort of it's a multi-step process with tricky sequencing, which we're experiencing ourselves on what we're doing on our project, and likewise, this project has its own tricky sequencing. One of the sort of first up pieces they need to do is to get a conditional use permit, or CUP, as Mike was referring it to, that would allow the property, the portion of our property, well, the city property too, all of it, to be used for recreation purposes, because the zoning currently has it sitting as a school. And so in order to build a softball field and to go forward with that plan, you got to get a conditional use permit to allow for that property. And if anybody on the line wants to correct my explanation of this, feel free to do that, but that's been the understanding that I came to, is that we have to get a conditional use permit first, then we still have the next stages. We still have design and review process and approval, so that's still in the works. There's a proposal on the table that is needed to go through the conditional use permit, but my understanding is that that still is up for discussion and dialogue and changes. It includes components such as not just the field layout, but things like lighting, the parking lot, locker rooms and restrooms, storage, all that stuff. And that there's a variety of stakeholders that need to be able to have input into these plans. And that includes us, it includes the school district, of course, it includes the city, fire and safety, ODOT, probably the Office of Civil Rights, I'm guessing. So there's all these stakeholders that have to have input onto these. And only then sort of you keep it moving on and start with the building permit process. So then there's that piece. And we also know that we need an IGA in place, because an IGA is going to cover not just the construction of this particular facility, but the ongoing maintenance and the agreements of who's handling what in terms of programming, supplies, repairs, all the stuff. So all that stuff needs to be managed. But this first step, we can't even start down the path of any of that without a conditional use permit to start down the path. And so, I think, do you want to cover 3, or should I keep going, Mike? The sort of the next steps about the conditional use permit?
Yeah, now, we're looking at the conditional use permit, which seems fairly simple. Now, our understanding is that the locker room improvements, which are envisioned, are going to be pulled out of this conditional use permit request to the city. They are not required, as Brian mentioned, for the OCR conditions that need to be met. So that would simplify as far as our point of view. You know, that capital improvement we can look at as we move along, but wanted to just mention that to the board because we have packets of information that still show that. So some of the board members are not up to speed on that last decision. Has there been any more thoughts on your part, Brian and Susan, about doing that?
Yeah, thanks again for the opportunity to address the board tonight. Yeah, just a quick update from that. Previous to this meeting tonight, I know Skylar was on the call as well, we had a joint collaborative meeting between both design and ownership committee teams with Jeff Flory at City Planning to discuss pathways forward for both of our projects. Discuss the opportunity to possibly do a collaborative single conditional use permit application as well. That was discussed, and it just appears that there are diverging timelines to get both of those applications done concurrently or as a single application. So, Skylar, correct me if I'm wrong, our understanding is out of that recent call with planning was that they also did confirm in their mind, in Jeff's mind, that if we were to reduce out the locker room scope from our application, that it would add clarity to both of our individual conditional use applications, because it does appear that both applications will be a type 2 planning commission decision that goes before the public hearing during planning session, and that would reduce the potential of confusion and additional clarifications or questions from general parties that could disrupt that process timing. So at this point, I believe, and Susan and I talked after the meeting as well, that we are intending to, yes, Mike, to pull that scope from this initial application. So our team at ZCS will be editing that initial plan document to show that, to not show the locker rooms, and they've also addressed us to not include the projected west parking lots restriping plan, just to add clarity for the softball project to be more concise into what its scope is, and allow that question to be addressed in the SEPRD's conditional use application.
So we have to have a separate application, or are we playing jointly for that?
My understanding, just because of the timelines that your team has, are a little longer in duration to be able to pull that combined packet together, that I think it's in the best interest of both teams that and the city from planning side that individual applications would be the best path forward for both projects at this point.
Well, we need
So this is
seems
Jeff
like we need to fast track that. I'm not sure we've done anything.
Well, they don't have to do
Yeah,
it
just-
at the same time. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, apologize. I guess there's a caveat to that, and I don't know if this is the right forum to talk about it, but there was different messages in the meeting from the city of Seaside. I think there was conversations around, there's a lot of reasons why you would want to do them together, because they don't know what the end use is of what your facility is going to be, and
therefore there might be, things put upon that conditional use permit that would impede your ability to use the building as you would want. That being said, you could come back and object to them during that process and, you know, come to a resolution through planning commission, et cetera. But there, you know, generally, Brian, what he's talking about is there feels like a path to where they can go down two separate paths, but you would want to make sure they're overlapping and making sure we have good information from both parties to ensure that the interests are looked after from a whole perspective, not just individuals.
So,
if I could add too, I agree with Jeff. I think the consistent message we did hear from the city though is that some of the operational potential issues that may be addressed by planning could be done through joint agreement on terms and conditions in the IGA as an overarching document between the city, SEPRD, and the school district to show basically collaboration and continuing agreement in operation, ownership and maintenance and use and function of the facility. So I thought that was a positive comment as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that is, I mean, I think we even spoke about it a little bit, Susan, on the call earlier with the city about that feels like that's a pretty big piece of the cooperation between the multiple parties that are involved here, the city of Seaside, school district, and SEPRD. So I think having at least a clear understanding and at least a memorandum of what you would work off of may not have to be, you know, small community, we all know each other and want to work together. May not have to be, you know, with the ink dry on it, but it would certainly make a lot of sense to do that earlier than later. And then I think, again, Brian alluded to it, and then Brandon, when we were on the phone call, there's a couple different design partners in this process too. Bring along the partners that are with SSD, and then SEA for SEPRD, a lot of acronyms flying around tonight. But have that communication really line up, and I think it'd be a much smoother process that would answer a lot of questions along the way, rather than both parties going down, you know, two different paths. I think that would make a big difference moving forward to hopefully hit timelines that meet the goals of everybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I totally agree with Jeff and Brian's comments. You know, removing we all want the same thing, which is to have a great facility for our community to be able to use, and this is a good opportunity to do that. And I really appreciate the conversations, Skylar, Celeste, and Mike, that we've been having. It's given us an opportunity to learn more about your master plan and as you're developing that. And I agree that removing the locker room remodel until you have an opportunity to go through that process is the way to do it, because like you said, it gives us an opportunity to do that, and the district is still very committed to remodeling those locker rooms, but we want to make sure that we respect your timeline.
yeah, I think it gives us a chance to consider that piece and to do it in a way that serves to the maximum extent possible, whether it's that it serves the Park and Rec, just like if we're remodeling the locker rooms, the idea isn't just to remodel locker rooms to meet the softball requirements, right? Like we have other sports that use it, you know, we have other needs for those locker rooms, and so we want to be able to make sure that we have time, and they're already locker rooms. So my understanding is that they don't really fall under the conditional use change that we're asking for, right? Like for I'm assuming that, maybe I'm wrong about that, but they're already locker rooms that exist there. So one of the pieces that, and again, I'd like anybody to correct me if I'm wrong, because this is what I've sort of pulled from the various meetings we've had. So when we're applying for the conditional use permit, it requires our signatures because we're the property owner. So we do have submit for that, along the school district also is submitting it, but we have to sign it as the property owner. But it doesn't obligate us in other areas. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we're approving construction to move ahead right now. It doesn't mean that we're committing any dollars on behalf of the district. It doesn't mean that we've approved a final design. It doesn't mean that we're providing any kind of easement over the property. Am I correct on that?
You are correct, yes.
Yeah. So what it means is that we're approving this go-ahead to get approval to ask the planning department to give an okay to this property being used as recreation.
So what you want from the board is a green light?
So what I'm proposing for a green light is that the board would provide Skylar with approval to sign the conditional use permit on behalf of the district upon, we have some considerations before signing can actually take place, and some of that is like, I think we need to see the revised conditional use permit. I don't think we've seen that yet, so we have to see it and have adequate turnaround time to look at it. I know that there's some questions that may have been answered, and I haven't heard the update about the city meeting yet, but sort of the implications of these two permits versus one consolidated permit and what that means, like, so I think we need some clarification on that. I think we need, I had asked Skylar about whether or not we needed some sort of legal review, like what, and maybe that whether we get that guidance from SDAO or somebody else, like whether or not there needs to be legal review of of our signing of a CUP and how that sort of obligates us. So that would be a piece, and whether it obligates us. I'm particularly interested in whether or not the CUP obligates us, takes us any kind of party to the Title IX kind of piece of this. I'm doubting it, but I don't know for sure, so I guess we'd like to just hear that from somebody that knows the legal things. And then and then finally that Skylar would just sort of consult with Mike and I as the board representatives, so that we can check off that all these things have been done.
So do you need authorization for you two to act as the voice of the board?
I think we've already had that. That's why we're acting as delegates already.
Okay.
Yeah, we've already had that. So, but what I think we want to do is to make sure that the board is behind, again, working in partnership, but the board is behind.
Skylar, we want to authorize Skylar to sign off on that. Now, if there's a different CUP to be drafted and reviewed, Skylar could do that probably satisfactorily.
Well, I'm proposing that he confers with us before actually, to make sure that we've sort of satisfied these pieces.
I brought that up at the earlier meeting, and I think it's my understanding that the current application that you have seen can be changed, to remove the locker room components, and would look fairly similar without that.
Yeah,
but as soon as I have that, I will share with the board.
So I just had three questions. One was about coordinating submissions, and that I think has already been answered. Second is about the IGA and whether that comes in front or behind the coordination of submissions, but I think that should be close to the top of the list.
I agree.
And the third thing, and maybe not anything we have to address right now, but how are we going to manage this project? We have multiple property owners, multiple projects going on, we have multiple funding streams, and then different interests from the parties that are involved.
Yeah.
So is there going to be one hierarchical management structure that runs?
Seems like the school district is probably providing that management structure.
But I think that is why it was so important for our consultants who are already, waist deep in our project planning process to be in communication and consultation with the school district's team, because we don't want to step on each other, right? Like that is
we got competing interests.
Competing interests, and so it's really important that those open lines of communication stay open. And to your point about the IGA, I have on my list, like that, when I was saying that it was a tricky sequencing, it's tricky, right? Because there's a lot of different moving parts. And so, and I feel like the school district has shown a commitment to making sure that we have strong communication and coordination going on between not just staff, but also then between leadership. In our case, our board needs to have, because while we may not be paying for the improvements being made, we certainly are spending staff time, and we certainly could be exposing ourselves to risk, and to, who knows what other kind of financial, like, we need to have, we have some exposure here, and so, yeah.
And just one other question, I know this is gonna sound really, really basic, but is there any other, this is for the school district, is there any other exposure out there? Are there any other sports where this could come up at some time in the future? Are there any other athletes that their interests need to be addressed in this process? Because I hate to come back in 6 months and find out, you know, we gotta do something to the basketball court or to whatever. And
That wouldn't be the school district.
that wouldn't be the school district.
They have their own basketball.
What about the football field?
I would like to see, we have our vendors, you know, we've already got our architects and, you know, our engineer consultants looking at this work too, and there may be some financial impact against their contracts. We have staff time and, that's invested in this with stakeholder meetings, with our maintenance director. Celeste and I are volunteers, you know, we're in it for the fun, we just have a blast. But, we do have, time on our hands, just like Brian and some of the others here, and we would like to see, room in the Capital Authority, so that we can bill our time into that appropriately for, you know, any needed consultation or staff time for performance.
Yeah, so if I could Jeff Caldwell, just to help clarify, maybe answering that question a bit more. Yeah, you're right, there are a lot of complexities. Again, you have City of Seaside, you have the school district, you have the Sensitive Parks and Recreation District, you have the board, here sitting before you, a number of other people that have vested interest in, Broadway School and what the future use looks like after the expense of purchasing that building and going through that. Then further down from that, you have different representatives from different teams here. And, I can say as Klosh Group, representing Sunset Parks and Rec, will make sure that we team up and move this thing forward in a positive manner to help move it through while protecting the interests of all parties. Being, I'm also a citizen of Seaside, so I want to make sure that the right things are done. So, you have our commitment to make sure that happens.
Thank you.
I'll add also that Skylar and I and Spencer Kyle, the new city manager, have been meeting regularly to update the IGA. It's a super high priority to us too. And it was good in our meeting with the city today with Jeff Flory to learn a little bit more from him, from his perspective on what should be included in that IGA, regarding parking and such. So that was really good to learn that. In answer to your question about are we thinking about other student athletes in this process? Of course, we have this softball field requirement with the Office of Civil Rights, but this is also an opportunity for us to update the field for soccer, for football, for baseball, and to be able, because we're really close, as you all know, to the end of life on the synthetic turf for the entire field. So it gives us a really good opportunity to work together on updating this complex for all of those different sports.
Thank you. Mrs. Penrod, this project will solve the problem, correct?
The Title IX
The problem is a Title IX problem,
yes,
and we have a high level of confidence that this will solve the problem. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think at this point, and I imagine there may be other points where we're coming back. I mean, this is a first report out for Mike and I to our board, and I imagine that throughout this project, we're going to come back, and there may be other places where we ask to have board authorization of Skylar to do X regarding this project, but I think this first one is limited to authorization to sign the conditional use permit upon sort of covering some of these other pieces, including reviewing the actual conditional use permit, right? Like that we need to review it, but that's our first ask.
Well, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay,
If,
great.
but I want to make sure that we don't hold the school district people longer than we have to.
Oh, we're good. I'm good.
Okay. So I move that we authorize Skylar to prepare and sign CUP documents
Right.
for the renovation, field renovations.
Mm-hmm. Can I make a friendly amendment?
Sure.
After satisfying, after satisfying some of the conditions such as, receiving and approving a draft and,
Review by us.
and review, yeah, I would say, if you say review by board delegate.
Okay.
Yeah, that might do it. Okay.
So do I have to restate
No,
that?
you have to restate it. I think that covers it, right? Skylar? So do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Mike second. All in favor?
Aye.
Rebecca? Sue?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so motion carries. All right.
I'd like to say thank you to the school district for being here and hanging out.
Go get them.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you very much. I look forward to, with us working on this together.
Thank you.
And we have a number of meeting minutes, notes and meeting minutes from today's meeting with the city of Seaside. That was a very, very good meeting that we will get issued out as well.
Very good. Thanks, Jeff. And thanks, SEA and Claude.
Thanks,
Brandon, Chris. Yep, thank you.
Thank you
All
all.
right, thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is a strategic plan update.
Yeah, great. We'll be great. I feel like you've been hearing from us a little bit.
Brandon, do you want to just move to Seaside? Is that what we're doing here?
Well, you know, just have an extra room, maybe. Too much of a commute for myself. But just to note, to kind of go back to one of the questions, having some consistency with your A&E group, your owner's rep, is going to help, streamline the process and get things going. But with regards to the, to the master plan effort, we have pumped the brakes just a little bit. I will be honest. With the convergence of all of this, we wanted to make sure we gave appropriate attention to the ball field issue as well as the occupancy. So in terms of master planning, we have done a soft kickoff. Claude, Skylar, and our group have met, laid out the game plan. We need to reboot that effort a little bit so that we bring the full stakeholder group involved. And then the next step is actually going out and touring some facilities. So that a little bit of...
Can I ask a question? Is it something that we should consider actually formally, like, putting the brakes on? Like, should we take a hiatus while we're covering some of these other pieces?
I do think that it's a great question. And I do think that the convergence of all of this, we want to be strategic with the way we move forward. Now, everything that we're seeing with regards to locker room and ball field, all of that is great for the facility. So there's no concern there. It's just making sure we understand timeframes and how that's going to work, and that we're able to incorporate that into the next steps over the next few months, right? We want that to be a part of the packet and document. I think with the way that the school district is going to proceed quickly, the master plan and the ball field effort will actually align a little bit better than the occupancy. So we'll be able to converge and keep those two things together in tandem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question. Maybe I don't understand the different terms, but we've been using strategic plan and master plan almost as if they're interchangeable. But I always viewed master plan as being a master plan for buildings and a strategic plan being strategic for
organization,
for what we do.
Yeah, for the organization.
And if that's the same terminology you're using, okay. But I didn't want us to get kind of
You were
off on different tracks.
you were spot on, and the deliverable in the end is gonna be those two things combined in what we're calling a strategic master plan.
Okay, thank you, that's all I need.
Yeah, because I think that is an important part, because part of the analysis that I'm hoping to see in the end product is not like what we do with, just what we do with the SRC, but like,
What programs do we offer?
yeah, we got some of that from a previous review from, sports facilities. I don't know if you have that, actually. We should
I was at the.
You were at that meeting?
Well, if they had a public meeting.
Yeah, okay.
Previous.
So we have some of that, and I expect hopefully we get good use out of that, because it was their proposal. So, but I do hope, like, we have some upgrade issues probably with the aquatic center, for instance, and where does that fall into this whole picture? Like, I hope we're taking a universal look at the assets of the entire organization, and that the strategic plan really helps point a direction of where what we prioritize, what we raise money for, all those questions, yeah.
That's a great point, Celeste. I mean, we can plan and develop and get all the next steps out in front of you, but we have to execute. And then we also know that the highest and best use analysis done on Broadway School SRC, that is just built upon with the next work we're doing. So in your mind, if you can imagine the level of work done on SRC, we're going to do that level of work to all of SEPRD's facility and try to bring them all together as one campus.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I think the work with the school district is a win-win and a positive, because this just adds to the amenities and programs and use that SEPRD will have at their building.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thanks, guys.
So Brandon, if you could quickly bring up the next steps with the stakeholder group and our plan moving forward. We're gonna get that revised work plan schedule out to that group, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So we'll send out a 4-week projection that'll give you a little bit more information. And then we do have a little bit of tailoring since we paused just a little bit. So we'll update the full work plan and get that back out. But over the next 4 weeks, it's really about going out and looking at other facilities in the region.
Is there a
Chris,
component?
you can bring it up right now?
Sure. I don't think that would hurt, yeah, if we have the time to do so.
Are we good on time? Is that okay?
Sure.
Great. Someone will have to copy this share. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Perfect. Great. Let's see. Are you all seeing?
Yep.
Work plan?
Yep.
Okay, this work plan has a little bit of age to it, so January 30th. So back at that time, we were looking at kicking this thing off, doing our upfront, just kind of research, looking at your current facilities. So we have done that. We've got a vehicle tour from Skylar. We've gone through all the buildings and brought specifically my level of understanding of those facilities up to speed. And so now we're looking at these facility tours. So you can kind of see we're about 2 weeks behind in terms of schedule. And that 2 weeks was the pumps and brakes on, the ballpark and the occupancy work. So we're right here, stakeholder group. We find the work plan schedule. We have all that. And now it gets to targeting the facility tours. Those facility tours really set the stage for the survey development, that public engagement process. So SFC, SFA will develop that survey and deploy it out to the community. And then we'll do targeted community engagement sessions that will then come together in a comprehensive report. That comprehensive report will come together over the last few months, so draft master plan with a final draft deliverable targeted for beginning mid-August. It's a little bit less than but around August timeframe.
Brendan, is there?
Wrap up.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was saying we just wrap that effort up with a final deliverable that the whole team has had an opportunity to review and put a stamp on, and that concludes that work. And hopefully you'll have a clear picture of next steps and how to push that work forward, if that makes sense.
I'm wondering if in the public piece of this, 2 questions. One is, is whether you've had visibility to and can take into consideration previous public surveys that have been done. That I think that might inform the survey development. And then I'm also wondering if there's an opportunity, even if it's Skylar distributing a draft. I'm particularly interested in community surveys. So hoping that we can take a look at that, just because I think that's good board information. I think that helps inform us to be able to see what you're going to query the public about.
Yeah, those charrettes we did in 2014 is what led to all of this.
Right.
A great deal of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have the board representation and the stakeholder group will be a part of putting all that together, the development of the survey, making sure how it rolls out, and then how we actually decipher and distill the information from the survey.
Great.
And we'll be able to roll that back to the board in a comprehensive manner.
Great. That's great.
I'm good.
Okay. Like we said, it's kind of three levels of work brought into one, so I feel like we have a good handle on that. Next steps are coming quick, so a little bit more activity to come on the master plan.
Great.
I don't know if you addressed this when I dropped off there for a moment or not, Brandon, but just based on the conversations that we had in the city today, I mean, generally very, very positive. There's definitely a pathway to working together, but I think we need to make sure we do a good job of identifying the risks for SEPRD, the board, so they can sign off on, you know, the conditional use permit and some of the potentials that are there. They just need to be, you know, aware of and type stuff. But again, I think we can follow up with a lot of those via written communication so they can be shared with the board.
Yeah, the key there, Jeff, just to add to that, is we want SEPRD to understand the limitations and rights you have as a property owner, signing off on it as a property owner and not the applicant. There's a very big distinction there in how much control and risk you have being just a property owner in the way the forms are written. So, a little bit more to come.
Yeah, and even Jeff Laurie, you know, one of the things we asked today was about if you start to go down this process at some point. They may have glossed over it when I was speaking earlier, but it's a really important point. You go down this path, you sign the conditional use permit. At some point, you are committed to the process. You can't decouple from that. And he was not able to answer that. The only way you can answer that is through, you know, legal terms. He said the pathway, if you come up to something that, you know, through this conditional use permit, there's, you know, different things put upon it. The only way to get around that is to go back, if you don't like them, and, you know, present to the planning commission, city council that way. So there's different pathways for resolution, but you just need to know those things as well going in. It's not like it's a showstopper, but again, it's information that is important to share.
I think
that's all process.
It's all what?
That's the key.
It's all what?
All process. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important because I think I want to make sure, because I've asked this question now a few times, including when the school district was on the line about what the CUP is and isn't. And I've asked several times, like, to clarify that the CUP is not actually final design approval. It is not final. And so that's my question, because I got a firm yes from the school district that it is not, confirming that it is not final design approval. It is not an agreement to spend any of our money. It is not even a go-ahead to start building, right? Like, that it isn't any of those things, and that was a yes on the from the school district. But I do think we need to do our due diligence on our own side, and so I think any education y'all can provide us on that piece. But I also think this is where perhaps some legal review around what does it mean to be signing the CUP. What are we obligating ourselves to exactly?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. You were signing off. And the thing that I think you want to walk away with is you're signing off on any conditions that are unknown at this point. And so when those conditions come down, whatever they may be, what's your ability to mold them, form them, agree to, disagree to them?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think Jeff made the point in our discussion with them that it would be really great if there was an MOU or something that had been drafted, and maybe we can work on it quickly, but that states, you know, some of these things, states the financial risk is you know, it lies with the school district, and state that they, even though maybe we're taking the locker room renovation off of the you know, the plan right now, but that it'll be revisited, and that their intention is still to redesign that space and bear that expense as part of this project down the road, whatever that is, because I think we really, that would be a really awesome thing for the SRC down the road. We don't want to lose that that part of this, and also to have them, you know, retrofit or update the patron locker rooms. I think will be, that's a really nice thing that could happen for the building, the future of the building, right?
Yeah, there's some striping too to the existing parking lot on your west face there that will likely potentially be removed from that the school district CUP when you see a revision to it. So that's another aspect of it too.
Yeah, I really like the idea of some sort of MOU that's a public, you know, a public document. I think that could be a really smart piece, because I think what we decided is to well, at least my understanding is we're decoupling the locker room and the striping because it sort of hangs up and might actually overlap or step on our own building design process. But we don't want to decouple it from the project as a whole, right? We still want the school district to be participating in the cost, or covering the cost, actually, of the locker room, because that's part of them meeting the whole spirit of the Title IX requirements, right? Like that's part of the deal, and that's what we're getting actually for participating in this process. So I do think that's important, and I think to cover that in a written document would be smart. And so my question is how do we do that? And are there examples of that that exist?
Yeah, just one more point about the memo of understanding is it's not just the things that you do know, like it's the things that we don't know, as well as how do we protect ourselves from those. And I think that we, Klosh, could probably work with SEA and Skylar to come up with a document that he could present to you folks and work through. You know, we can definitely try to do something with him to help if you want.
That'd be great.
That's a good idea.
I think it would be smart and a good investment of our time to get that, and also sets the pace that we have expectations in this project, right? That we have expectations on our end too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the one thing that I said on the meeting with the city today, and you know, truly mean it. Like we want to partner. We want to make sure this thing like really like has a great ending for the city of Seaside as a whole, and the kids and everybody else. You know, and thank goodness SEPRD had the vision to purchase that building, because they wouldn't be having this opportunity if it was purchased by a private entity that was just going to develop for other purposes. So it's
true.
Paying off on
Pat
it.
on our back. Well, it's
Thank
full
goodness
board.
it's not a hotel.
Yeah, right, no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So could be Gerhard. Right. I'm talking now.
I think you're bleeding a little bit there, Skylar.
It hurts me as bad as it hurts anybody, because that place is,
Yeah.
in my backyard, and it's near and dear to my heart. And now it's fenced off, and the elk are eating all my plants instead of munching on all that greenery.
All right. So I think that is the next step, and to the extent we can, I mean, I think while we were put in a position to be responding on a timeline that's not fantastic for our end, I know that Mike and I have done what we can to be available to participate in this process. I know Skylar, you and your team have been doing but I think it's reasonable for us to forward some requirements through an MOU, right? I think that is fair, and I think if it's possible to get that outlined and done so it doesn't impact the submission timeline, I think it would be great, if that's possible.
Yeah, I think, Brandon and I and Chris will loop back, and then we'll talk a little bit, and then we'll, set up a meeting with Skylar to, try to formulate a plan that helps move the process along.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Well, excited about the strategic plan, like that was the big show. You know, that's like I'm super excited about the strategic plan and glad that even though we had a little bit of a delay, I appreciate y'all stepping in and providing good guidance to us in this, in the Broadway Park piece, because I do think it feeds the whole plan that we have, for a campus. So appreciate you pivoting to that and understand the slight delay, but excited to see that work move forward.
Same here, we're excited for it, and we're very committed to SEPRD and CLOSH. We are a team for you, and we're just gonna continue to do the same thing. Look out for your best interests, what's good for the community, and what is right for the district.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Good evening.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna keep us moving along, because I know that we're running long here. So district goals for 2023, Skylar?
Yeah, I just prepared a little memo which was intended to summarize the discussion from our January meeting. We still have, I think, 3 goals that are relevant from 2022 that I'd like to keep on our list. And then I came up with 2 goals that we didn't discuss, but I put the wrong year, sorry. Skylar's ideas for goals, that should say 2023. We're not in 2024 yet, thankfully, but 2 goals that are important to me and I would assume are also important to the board. Mm-hmm. So this brings the total to 10 goals, which is, I think, about a good number, maybe around the maximum number that I feel like I can handle just with all the other stuff going on. But wanted to bring this back to your eyeballs for review, discussion if you'd like. What I am hoping for is that we can move forward from this meeting with either adoption of these goals as our goals for the calendar year, and or if there's adjustments, that's fine too. And then starting in March, kind of presenting the goals and providing an update as we did in 2022 on those goals. So I really appreciated the feedback from the board members that offered some goals up, and I tried to kind of summarize those in succinct fashion. But if there's expansion, I know Kyle, you had mentioned an additional goal that I felt like was really a good goal, and I appreciated Mike and Catherine and Sue's goals as well. So open to discussion, or if you want to just move forward with adopting these goals, these 10 goals.
I just have a couple comments. First, I'd like to rewrite mine because it sounds kind of negative. Reduce is kind of a negative word. Barriers is kind of negative. I mean, like enhance participation or something like that, because I want these all to be positive. Mm-hmm. On the one that you provided, Skylar, number 2. Mm-hmm. That doesn't seem very strategic to me. It seems like managerial.
Yeah.
And, I would like my goals to be really, high goals. I mean, stretch things. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, like on that number 2, I'm not sure what a staffing model using existing needs.
Yeah.
I think if we had a staffing matrix that accommodated future needs as more people began utilizing it or whatever, then you would look at your matrix and say, oh, the pool's being used 5 more hours a day, we need 2 more lifeguards or something, whatever matrix you use. But I think it should be focused on the future rather than what we're currently doing, if that makes any sense.
I agree with you, and in some ways, like, I trust you to do this job, like, this is part of, to me, this sort of feels a little bit like it's
Well, this
the
is
regular.
the HR manager's job.
Yeah, yes, but he
Well,
supervises this,
Oh,
right?
right.
Like, right, he supervises, it's part of the regular supervision.
And that's it.
My goal is, and the reason why I'm bringing it to the board for visibility is because this is a significant portion of my time spent is, and I know we have a HR person, but it's
Supervision?
it falls on me ultimately to ensure that the district is functioning efficiently.
Right.
And part of that is having the right people in the right place and making sure that we're well-staffed. And I also think,
Say that.
I also think
Yeah.
that there's a chance, you know, we haven't really gotten into the nitty-gritties of the budget yet, but I think there's a chance that there's going to be changes in our current staffing model that will be presented to the budget committee and to the board for adoption, and I think that's a big part of our, a big part of my job and a big part of our healthy workplace culture. So I recognize that maybe these aren't board and staff goals, but I think they are Skylar goals, and I want to make sure that even though they are things that I was doing before and will continue doing, I want to make sure that they're recorded as being significantly important for me and for the investment of my time.
So do you, I mean, so I think maybe I was getting hung up, I don't know if it's true for you, Kyle, but with the language of a staffing model with current needs, like,
Sure.
like,
Maybe that's not
if
the right-
it, like, if it was the future orientation, like, we want to make sure that the district is a great place to work with competitive offerings and a strong retention plan, right? Like, something like that, like, forward-looking, so that we can get the workforce we need and
When
keep
and where we need
when
it.
and where we need it, and make them happy, like, that to me feels more,
Yeah, no,
if that's-
I like that edit, it's a great edit, I'll take it.
okay,
And,
so if that's what you mean, I mean, I don't want to change it if that's not what.
That is, it.
Good.
The word model probably doesn't fit in there, but I think,
Yeah.
yeah, that summarizes what I was hoping to.
So if it weren't for employees, your job would be really easy, huh, Skylar?
Well, it would just be a lot of these planning projects and things like that, so.
Just have to deal with contractors.
I would like to suggest that we adopt these 10 goals. But we need to prioritize them. I think we adopt them. I think in the next month we should put on the agenda to prioritize the goals. Obviously, there are some that may have need immediate attention. And, you know, there may be opportunities to meet some of these goals, you know, sooner than later. But I think it would be good to prioritize these.
I agree, and I think the spirit
That
of
would,
the goals
you know,
is,
give Skylar kind of an eyeball for.
Yeah, and maybe right-size some of them. Some of them, like, some of them could be huge or could be very small, depending on what you need. Like, we don't actually have SMART goals attached, like, some of these are not measurable at this point, right? We don't really know what the thing is, so I know that there was a lot of discussion around creating more opportunities for patrons to get to know staff, and that was your suggestion, Sue. And there's lots of ways to do that. So I'd like to hear Skylar's plan of what the right size of that might be, because we ranged it from going to meetings or putting up pictures in the lounge so people can identify, right? And that would be a fairly small.
And I wrote down all of that.
Yeah, so that would be a fairly small, low-hanging one to do, to put up the pictures, and fairly easy.
Yeah.
Going to a lot of meetings is gonna take you away from a lot of this other stuff, and I think some of us expressed concern about that, right? And so, I think hearing back I agree, and we think we should accept them, but I would like to hear back from you
On
about,
the director goals, or just that one?
just what is that going to look like to fulfill that?
Sure.
Because,
Strategic plans, right?
So,
yeah.
I guess I'll share, and I don't disagree with the goal. I put it on here, and I think it's a good one. My personal feeling, and as I've looked at other municipal governments, typically the board members are the ones that are seeking that engagement with patrons. And I know that happens for you guys in different ways. For Sue, you know, you're wonderful and you're in the pool every day. And so you have that engagement with the patrons. And I've taken the position, you know, over the course of my employment that I don't tell the board that they should be here, they should be there. That's not really my place. So I think it's important that the board maybe take some responsibility or have some of that stake too, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like we, as a district, we did a couple years ago, before COVID, we did mornings with a staff member. And so in the lobby in the morning, we put it on the calendars and stuff like that. You know, Darren took a month and I took a month. You know, we kind of rotated around. We'd have donuts and coffee and things like that and encourage people to come by and chat. And it worked somewhat, but we didn't have a lot of meaningful conversations. It was a grab and go if it was anything, and a lot of times it was, hey, I'm getting in the pool. You know, I don't really want to stop and talk, and hey, I'm going to work or I'm going to do this now.
But that was on my list.
But that could be something, a program that we re-engage in, and it's pretty low-hanging fruit for us to do that. I think the picture thing is an opportunity, but I would feel more comfortable if the board's pictures were up and maybe.
Or both.
And that they
That's what I
accompany
put,
the staff.
board pictures.
Yeah.
So, but I think all of that is, like, can be discussion. What I'm a little bit apprehensive about is, well, a couple things. So, I think, like, we're laying out sort of what we would like to see, but I think we need to hear back from you what that's going to look like. Like, what does it look like when it's done? And that will spark some conversation. You're also reminding me, so this board, when we first came on, we actually did build some board goals. Catherine, you might remember that. I think you and I worked on that actually, to start with, for ourselves, for our own good governance, about what we wanted to do, and we could include some of that. Like, that might be a work session that we want to do at some point, to have our own list of things that we want to do.
Well, the strategic plan will drive some of that.
It could drive some of it, but we also we had some of our own governance work to do, like how we work together, how we onboard a new board member, how, like, some of this stuff where we didn't have our own internal governance, our own governance policies. And it helped a lot. I think it helped us be a more cohesive board, to have some of that. But we have not updated those or revisited those again, so probably should do that.
Well, maybe the timing on that would be really good, like later in the year. But after the strategic plan comes in and this stuff will be mostly out of the way, and then we can
have a little more bandwidth.
Then we can sharpen the saw a little bit.
I want to point out that our next meeting's in 3 weeks and 2 days.
So I like that, like putting it on a fall agenda, maybe.
Well,
maybe
after the strategic plan and the strategic plan and the field are going to kind of come together about the same time.
Yeah,
the strategic plan a little later, perhaps, but you know, then that takes this off the plate, and then it takes the strategic plan off the plate, and then we can really think about what we value. And,
When is the field supposed to be completed?
Supposed to be?
Yeah.
Well, that's tricky, but I guess what their ideal timeline would be is that they're able to start construction on the football field, part of the field, as soon as baseball and softball are done, so middle, maybe end of May, and then that field would be ready for soccer and football in the middle of August. And then at some point, maybe during that time or right around the same timeline, they would start construction on the softball field. They don't really need the softball field to be completed until next spring 2024. But I think you want to try to do the bulk of the work kind of in coordination with this other project, as well as the fact that you need good weather for some of these things to happen, especially for the laying of the turf and that type of stuff. So. But yeah, 2023 is going to be a lot going on.
There is a lot, so that's part of my thoughts about right-sizing some of these asks, because you have a lot of other stuff going on. Yeah.
Would it be all right, I guess, I'm not sure how to effectively have this conversation and to right-size some of those goals. Maybe would the board be willing to select a representative that I could work with and create kind of some smaller goals, more bite-sized, that, you know, can be accomplished as part of the larger goals. So maybe, you know, for number 4 up top, it's pretty easy. I think we can identify, okay, here's a few things that we're gonna implement, and whether it's pictures or this or that, but I think there's ways to do it, or at least bring a suggested timeline of when we're gonna work on this. Maybe it's just that the priorities that Mike talked about. We can do the SDC's discussion at any point. Our folks from Giarducci or whatever that firm is called that does all of this, they'll come to a board meeting just like they did before, and they'll be prepared. I think the out-of-district meetings, that's probably something that I would maybe want to wait a little bit for, just as we work through some of this other stuff. Number 3 is I'd say that's pretty low-hanging fruit. That just requires us to staff up a little bit more than we are right now. Number 5, I think that'd be one that we'd want to probably identify some smaller goals and say, okay, here's a barrier.
This could be a really big project.
Yeah, here's a barrier.
To drill down on this, you
Well,
mean?
because you have to find out, I mean, we have good information about why people come here because we can ask them. But we don't have very good information on why people don't come here. And
But the community survey might give us some.
it might give us some of that, so maybe the strategic plan will articulate some of those barriers, and then we can, Skylar can kind of drill off of that and figure out where to focus his attention.
Yeah.
But this may actually be better in the strategic plan.
Yeah.
With individual goals and objectives, you know.
As opposed to putting it here in this.
Well, it can be here because I think we always want to reduce barriers, but.
Or increase access.
Yeah,
Or
enhance
access to the usership or something like that? Is that what it is?
I think it was like enhanced utilization.
Enhanced utilization, okay, I like that.
Surprisingly, some people don't come here because they don't know where they're.
That may
Even though
be.
it's out on the highway, they have signs pointing everywhere. Doesn't say assigned to Sunset Pool. It doesn't say Sunset Recreation Center on the highway. But, you know, we don't have a sign that says Sunset Pool. You know, we have signs that say library and city hall and all this other stuff, but, you know.
Well, and I was thinking one more of those, there are communities here that are difficult to access. And irrespective of the reasons why, I think it will require some focus.
Yeah.
Figure out how we get to them.
And I think we've had some pretty good luck, and specifically, as I recall, we had a Hispanic
That's
celebration,
awesome.
right? That was
Yeah.
awesome, right?
Yeah.
And that we've made some things LGBTQ friendly by being more inclusive in how we design some of those things. So I think that, but I'd like to nominate Kyle to work with you on some of these drilling down.
I'll be happy to.
Inclusion and equity, you know, are good things to speak about.
Yeah, I think if Kyle's your board liaison to sort of throw the ideas off of and help get down to drill down to some, if that's okay.
Yeah, that could be bad for you.
No, it's okay. Anytime, if you're gonna give Kyle that explicit designation, it probably should be accompanied by a motion and vote.
I would like to delegate Kyle to be our board liaison to
Goals and objectives.
to solidify, it's not solidify, to clarify goals and objectives for our executive director.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
My motion. You
I
want to second
move
it?
that we appoint Kyle to do that.
Well, I made the motion.
So you have
want
to
to second
So
it?
moved.
I
I'll
moved. You second?
You're acting as chair, but
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Oh, can I now?
Good, that was a good motion.
Okay, so we have, the motion on the table is that Kyle would serve as the designated board member to work with, or the designated board liaison to work with Skylar to flesh out the
Goals
goals and
and objectives.
objectives. Thank you.
By next meeting.
Oh, by next
Well,
meeting?
but we want to have these clarified.
By next meeting, okay, by next meeting, okay.
But it needs to happen.
Okay, all in favor, Kyle?
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Thank you, Kyle. Okay, so we'll move on to new business.
All right, we're cruising now, hopefully. Just wanted to provide a little bit of an update about the foundation. We talked briefly about it at our January meeting. We had a great meeting in person, and Chris and Darren were present, and they prepared and presented a budget for the foundation, which was accepted or approved. We talked about some of the efforts we've made on behalf of the district, but also the community involvement with some of the holding of funds for events or activities like Pride and Seaside, the community gardens, and then more recently a community AED program that we're kind of still in the very early stages, but I think it's going to be a really awesome thing for our community. We talked about our upcoming fundraiser, which had been called the Sweet Affair and was called Sip and Savor. And this is the final voyage of the event, so we're calling it Ship and Savor. It's going away after this, but that's on Sunday, May 7th.
Hey, Skylar?
Yes.
Why is it going away?
Yeah, the committee and foundation board both feel like the formula of this particular event of having a silent auction, live auction, paddle raise is very tired in our community, that it's difficult to engage donations and sponsors. And so it's not as if we are not going to work hard to replace the funds that we raise or will be raising on a different event or two, but it's in an effort to keep the event fresh and encourage participation and donor engagement. I think there's going to be a change in some other things that will come up. We're working on some of those things, yeah.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yep. We have 4 foundation board members, and we would like to add a couple of more, up to 3. We can have up to 7. And around the same time that we had our January meeting with the foundation board, we got an application or a letter of interest from a community member, Marcus Runkle, who used to be an employee of the district and is very involved with the district and has been a strong supporter of our special events through his business. And he would like to join the foundation board, and it's the bylaws. Yeah, he runs like a HR and payroll consulting business. Yeah. The bylaws of the foundation require that new foundation board members have to be approved by the district board.
So I move.
Well, is there any conflict with him being on the budget committee?
There is not. Yeah.
So I move that we approve Marcus Runkle to be on the board of the Sunset Empire Parks and Recreation Foundation.
I'll second that.
Aye.
Oh, yeah. Let's vote. Kyle, is an aye. Sue?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
I'm an aye.
So can I ask, on that letter that is dated today,
Yeah.
the finance department, there's a paragraph, I presume you want, the finance department presented a 2023 budget with 71,000, not 71
Yeah.
points.
Sue, you really should have been a copy editor.
It's the European way.
You're exceptional. I'm sorry. Yes, $71,000, $250 in fundraising. It was the presented budget.
Thank you.
Very sorry. Thank you.
So still on the foundation, there is a move afoot to hire a grant writer for the foundation.
Correct. Yeah, I'm gonna actually, if it's okay, I'll share an update under my report.
Okay.
Give the staff
Sorry.
update. But yes, good progress in that area right now too. That's my information on the foundation. I'm prepared to move on to item B if you'd
Great,
like.
thank you.
So I don't think we need to spend too much time on this, but did want to provide this information for visibility. We've received information from Clatsop County. District has 2 positions that are up for election in the upcoming spring election. District 4, which is Kyle's district, and District 5, which is Board President Catherine's district. There is timeline and other important information, the last day for district candidates to file is March 16th. And then election day is May 16th, so a couple months away. The district does not make it a practice to provide these documents in-house, but wanted to provide them here so that a candidate could potentially use what we provided and print them off and complete the paperwork that they need to. And that's all I feel like I should say on the matter for this public meeting, unless there's questions or concerns. Okay. Great. Moving right along.
I'm working on mine.
Okay. That's a thick packet of information. So if you get to kind of the end of the board packet, we shared a budget committee vacancy process and timeline. I appreciate Chris and Darren sticking around, being here, but also their help in getting our timeline straightened out. They've already been working internally on the budget stuff for about a month, so if they want to jump in, I think the conversations in early stages have gone really well, and we're feeling confident that we'll have a really good-looking budget. As far as the vacancy goes, we actually, as of today, we actually have 2 vacancies. Marcus sent in a letter of resignation for the budget committee for moving forward, and we have Kyle's position to fill as well. So we will be looking for 2 budget committee members, but what I'd like to get approval on is posting the vacancy as early as I put today, but I don't think that's probably going to happen in all honesty. As early as tomorrow, and I listed some of the areas where we'll put it, and I also have a copy of the flyer that we posted around the district previously. It's really not that elegant or complex, but if you want to look it over, yeah, it's to get some eyeballs, but yeah, have the vacancy period close in a couple of weeks, and then have about a week to kind of coordinate budget committee interviews. I know that's a tight timeline and could make the March meeting lengthy potentially, or a little bit lengthier to conduct those short interviews. In the past, they've been 10 to 15 minutes. But just with our plan to have a budget committee meeting on April 18th, which is the week before the scheduled board meeting of April, we need to get those budget committee members in place, and that needs to happen at a formal meeting, which, you know, unless we schedule a separate formal meeting just for that.
And so by March 23rd, we would be doing, is that our regular board meeting date?
It is, yeah,
Or
yeah.
It moved to the Thursday because of the spring, isn't it? Because of
That
spring
way,
Spring break,
okay.
yeah. So also kind of laid out the 2 dates that we've tentatively chosen for budget committee meetings. Obviously, those can change, but those are not on board meeting dates, just because we found in the past that those were really long nights. But those are both Tuesday nights. That second meeting, May 9th, to put if necessary, because as you recall, you know, you may decide to move forward on the first meeting or just have a longer meeting, and then hopefully the budget would be. Sorry, that should say. Oh no, that's correct. Budget adopted during the May board meeting, or it could be adopted at that June meeting.
So I want to clarify that the April 18th does not require me to be here.
It would, yeah, because you're part of the budget committee.
Kyle and I are both on CERT.
Well, that ends at 6, and the meeting starts at 6, so we just have to walk down the hall.
Yeah, we'll be there.
That would be great, yeah, and those dates, while I think they were chosen with some intention, they could be adjusted, or the timing of the evening could be adjusted based on the budget committee.
To be fair, on March 23rd, I'm going to be out of town.
That's right, you said that, right, you're being,
So I'll be in Austin with my granddaughter.
So I think there's ways to do this electronically. We've done virtual interviews before, and I know you have, yeah, there's some moving parts, but so long as we have the majority of the board available, either virtually or in person, I feel confident that we can make good selections and fill the vacancies.
But we need to be out there recruiting people, right?
I would say that that's important. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If we don't get candidates, it's hard to fill. And we can have a budget committee of 8. There's nothing actually against the rules of it, but I think it's better to have no vacancies and have the budget committee be full and represent our population.
Well, it's been a way that we've pulled in new board
Exactly.
members when needed too, right? So.
How can we attract people to the budget committee from the disadvantaged community?
Yeah, I have thought about that too, and I have had some really good conversations with some folks representing some of those communities, and maybe I will see if there's a candidate that could come forward from those groups. Yeah. I'll do my part. I don't know if it'll work, but I would say if we can all do our part to reach out to our contacts that have access to those communities and some of those people, that would be great.
Yeah, and I think I would also like to see if, this is a fairly low footprint, a community participation kind of opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And, and I think we tend to often get people towards the senior age for some of our volunteer for some of these things. And I would love to see somebody like an emerging career accountant or somebody that does some numbers for a business in town or something like that, where we get somebody that's maybe at the beginning of their career or mid-career.
Sure.
Would be nice.
So with your approval or your blessing, I think we can move forward with the timeline and plan as submitted, and if you can help me recruit, I'll report back to the board when the application period closes, and we'll try to confirm some interview times based on that March meeting.
Great. Do you need a formal motion or just an agreement?
No,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you think Marcus would have any ideas about
You may, yeah.
who should
Reach out to
replace him?
Yeah. Yeah. Before we move on, I'm realizing, does everyone have this proposal that we got for Escuelita Mobile? It was in your packets?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For some reason, it's not in my packet, but I have a copy, and so I want to make
It was in the digital one I got too.
Okay, good.
So.
Yeah, so we received this proposal from some staff that work in the Division of Student Family Support Services for Northwest Regional ESD. It's a really cool project. They and I have been emailing a little bit, and then they came to the SRC to take a little tour. And there's a lot of, I think, wonderful reasons to pursue this partnership from the district's perspective, from staff's perspective. But I'm happy to share that staff is supportive of this effort, and we feel like we have an appropriate space that doesn't impact our programs in any way, only to complement maybe this program. And it's a pretty minimal impact to the building in terms of the timing, just twice a week for a 2 to 3 hour session each time, and a short session of 8 weeks. But to be honest and transparent, we have struggled to provide services to our Hispanic community, and I think this is a way for, just as the Latinx Hispanic Heritage Celebration Night was, this is a way for us to have more of those folks in our building and seeing what the building has to offer and getting more comfortable with the district, and also forging a stronger connection with that community and those who provide services to that community.
So how do the dollars flow in this?
Yes.
Are we being paid for this, or?
Yeah, we're kind of still working out how the rental agreement might work, but it's a grant-funded program that they got all the grants and support for. What they're trying to do is reach out to potential partners in their service area, which is kind of this tri-county, Washington County, Tillman, I guess it's 4 counties, Columbia and Plaza, and provide kind of these services in their area.
Okay, so are they going to be providing the services
Yes.
in our building?
Yes.
Or are we going to provide
No,
services?
they're providing
based
the
on
services.
funding from that?
So they're looking for space.
They're looking for space.
Oh, okay.
And in kind or not necessarily in kind? Or do we know?
I think their preference would probably be to have an in-kind agreement, but I don't know if that will work out for us. And it's not because it's not a wonderful partnership, but if they are, while the school is in probably one classroom, they do have desires to move around the building and utilize some of the other parts of the building, the cafeteria space, the playground, perhaps the library. Mm-hmm. So I think if they're going to be using that, and there's an impact to our staff and our resources, then I think that we deserve, at least, entertain.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, Catherine.
Well, so I had read through that, and it looked like they were asking to use the library and the cafeteria, and and the kitchen attached to the cafeteria space. And I know that it's like a short window and a short time frame, like short hours that they're there, and it's only like 2 days a week, and it's only for, I think, 8 weeks. I wholeheartedly agree with you about reaching that particular population. I'm just like, how does that impact the preschool program that's already using those spaces? Like, how will that work?
Yeah, I think the home base for this program will, even though they put maybe the cafeteria or the library, it probably won't be in those spaces. It'll be in one of the classrooms that is in the youth program's wing and isn't used during this. We're going to encourage them or ask them to have this program be in the morning. We use it in the afternoon. And then I think we can be accommodating and flexible as a group with them and ask for them for some flexibility when they want to use those other spaces in the building to kind of work around our programs. And there's a lot of that accommodation happening right now when we have a meeting that comes up and we have it in the library. Youth programs is flexible, you know, and I think this, it's a couple months away from now, so we can plan out some, you know, we can kind of calendar and schedule sort of where they're going to spend their time.
So I feel like we need, and I don't know if we had discussed this at one time, and I think partly from my own experience of having my organization come in and use space, that there ought to be a fee schedule. And if we want a discount for nonprofit or missional aligned kind of pieces like that, that's fine, discounting it heavily if we need to, but there ought to be some, and what I would like is that you all don't have to go back and figure it out each time a proposal comes up, that we actually have a standard sort of chart that we can go to.
Yeah.
And I think the same would be true, and I don't know, maybe you might already have this, but is there, like, do we have scheduling software that we're using to track the spaces and know what's open, and so then you just know if it's available or not, and and what the rate is.
Skylar, I don't know for the fee structure and all that, you know, the school district already has, you know, an application, and when all their legal, you know, got to provide insurance and their fee structure stuff that's publicly available on their website for people to view and model.
I think that's great.
Yeah, and Darren maybe can jump in if he wants to, but I think we have a lot of this in place, and we have modeled it probably after, I'm guessing, after the school or maybe after other, and I feel like we have a good, maybe not great system yet, but we'll get there as we get more rentals and such.
Yeah, and I think the only you know, real struggle with the SRC is, you know, we had set up a fee schedule for all of the rental spaces that, you know, we envisioned would be, you know, available for rental right off the bat. Those classrooms are one that we hadn't set a fee schedule to, simply because we hadn't envisioned at the time that, you know, that they would be rented spaces. You know, they were used solely for the purpose of our own programming and activities, but it's not difficult. We have similar spaces. Similar square footage that we've assigned a value to.
Yeah.
So.
And I would say that if we are allowing them to be in the space that we use for like after school activities and things, which is different than what we do currently with Northwest Regional, I think we need to have some sort of, I mean, not to be like nickel and dimey, but, you know, kids of that age, they like to break things or just, you know, color on things that they shouldn't, or, you know, because that's our investment in our things that they would be using.
Yeah. And we do have a standard deposit that kind of just across the board with all of our facilities too.
And including maintenance?
What's that?
Including maintenance?
Well, the deposit is just to cover any damage. So yeah.
And then the rental fee would be like
including
additional to that.
I think we have
utility costs.
Susan, Kyle. Yeah.
I have 4 questions. So one thing is, I read something in the paper that we rented space for a symphony. band, is that right?
Yeah,
I mean, are they,
there's some truth to that. We are providing, the old music room in the SRC for rehearsal practice.
and that's
too.
probably in the evening, so
It
it's
is.
not impacted by children?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. And our youth programs, and actually, we don't really have any programs that are using that space,
Right.
right now.
but I was curious because on the very, very back of the page, it talks about the plan is to increase to 4 cohorts, and they're saying a cohort is 15 kids, so we're gonna have potentially 60 children, and we're okay with that? I
That's
mean,
not part of this agreement, like, right now, we're just
looking at
looking at kind
one
of this.
cohort of
this-
15?
What I would call a pilot program in Clackamas County. They have had this program in, some of their other service areas, but they haven't had one in Clackamas.
So if we would get to trial, and, because I think this would be a very good opportunity, for all the reasons that you mentioned, so, so this idea of what they plan to do would be based on how things go with the one cohort
Perhaps, yeah.
of 15. Okay. Is there, I mean, I guess I'm looking at, right now we have this, they want to play outside, which is appropriate. Are we looking, is there any conflict with all this potential construction going on with all that we're doing with Broadway Field, with that one area that right now they want to make a parking lot versus a T-ball area? I mean, so the kids would have a place to play?
Yeah, so, I don't think their hopes are to use that part of the park, and our youth programs aren't using that part of the Broadway Park area. But you're right in the sense that, we are using the playground, in between the pool and the SRC, and there is an access road, and I think it's our hope, and we've shared it with, other partners, that that access road isn't used as a construction service road, that there's other ways to do this construction project. And so I think there's still some finagling to figure out if that access road is gonna be needed for that.
Because that just dovetails into my question about safety, and the kids playing outside, and what hazards or what insurances or what risk-benefit analysis might be involved. Because, I mean, I think this is a positive thing that we should be doing. I just want to make sure that we don't get caught with, oops, we didn't think of that.
You're talking about our program kids or this
No,
program?
theirs.
Yeah, I would venture to say that their program participants are gonna go through their own separate release and liability processes that they have in place, or that they'll have in place for this. And that would include releasing them, Northwest Regional ESD, as well as us, the landlord of the space, from those liabilities.
I think, one thing, if you're not doing it already though, so when I rent spaces for our nonprofit organization, I always have to provide an additional insured certificate, yeah,
Mhm.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for something this big,
Sure.
I think it's great.
So I love the idea of the program. A couple of questions though. So they're doing roughly 8 hours a week for 8 weeks for 15 kids, which works out to about just less than 1,000 student hours per cohort. So if they do one cohort now and 4 cohorts next year, that's 5 cohorts, 1,000 hours each for $250,000. So 5,000 hours of training for 250,000 hours. It's about $50 an hour per student. So this is tremendously expensive way to deliver the service, I think. But all that said,
It's aimed at preschool age.
I know it's aimed at little.
I think it's important.
Well, he said we're only doing one cohort, we're not talking about.
It's good analysis you have to.
No, but let me finish. So it's expensive, not expensive for us, it's expensive for ESD. but it provides us with a really important window. And, I mean, I support the project irrespective of how much, the ESD is being paid to do it. But I would really like to use this project with ESD's permission perhaps as a way to help us understand that community.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a big need, you know, the outreach there, the Latinx event that we had last year, which I missed, was hugely attended. I think it's a great opportunity, and you've got the educational and recreational partnership, and we can build on that, and I think it's indirectly, it's just wonderful outreach.
Mm-hmm.
We can bring these people into the fold and let them know what the opportunities are.
I think it might be great to look at, for your programming, to look at, like, are there opportunities to offer, you know, a free coupon to come in and use the workout facilities for a time, or to hold a family swim time open for the participants in that group, or to do some sort of crossover event to your point.
If it
Right.
is a coupon for free swim lessons or
Right.
something, we do whatever. Whatever it is, but more important to me would be learning who their parents are and how we can reach that community, and how they will overcome whatever barriers there are. How can we get them to overcome them and get here and play? You know?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I've been doing Duolingo on my my phone lately, boning up my Spanish.
Yeah.
I used to have taken a couple of years of Spanish in school and everything, but I'm getting ready to go to Spain next month.
Make sure you've got the right
I've been
dialect.
practicing the Duolingo, the Spanish. And I think it's really a good skill. It's great for the district to have those language skills too, to back up the invitation to play.
Mm-hmm. And we can give them all sorts of tchotchkes when they come here that will connect them to the district somehow.
I didn't know how to spell tchotchkes. I see it on my. Wow,
What's that mean?
that really looks great.
Swag.
Like trinkets,
Yeah.
Swag, merch.
like your lanyard.
Yeah.
Meaningless, de minimis value.
Meaningless.
Things. Not meaningless.
Marketing stuff.
We expect you to go buy one of those sweatshirts that Darren's wearing.
All right, we're already at 8 o'clock, so do you need anything from us than that?
I guess, I don't think I actually do, if the board wants to make a motion on it, but I did want to make sure that you knew about this cool opportunity. Yes, there's some things to work through on our end. I also want to bring public visibility to it because we want this. We want it really bad, I think, and it's so important for us to serve this community. And this program, I think, is a great way for us to get more access to that.
As part of that negotiations, when you talk to them, figure out where their next four are going to be next year.
Yes.
I'd like to sponsor that again, one or two of those again.
Sounds good.
It'd be great for the foundation to get involved with some fundraising to enable this type of collaboration to happen more.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so next up, we're going into executive session, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, Board of Directors will go to executive session for the purpose of conducting deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions pursuant to ORS 192.6601E.
I'll second that motion.
I'm going to take that as a motion.
As a motion.
And then Mike seconded it. And what you may want to do, doesn't look like we have any community members, but maybe just set an end date on, an end time, not date, on your executive session.
So what do we think this is going to be?
I honestly think this is a 10 to 15 minute discussion.
So we will be back in session no later than 8:20. Okay?
right, you okay if I proceed?
Yep.
So, yeah, just a quick update for me regarding staffing. So as was shared by Haley, we have made and have an accepted offer for our events and recreation coordinator. Her name is Zoe. She actually is an employee of the district currently. She works in our youth programs, but for she's worked for us for what, almost 30 years? And she actually held this position before, previously in the district. She took part-time roles while her son was younger, and she's decided to get back into full-time work. And so it was a really good fit. She's got a lot of really good experiences, great energy for the position and for the duties. I'm happy about that. We've also branched out some of our marketing efforts to, we hired a third party, an external marketing company to help us with our marketing efforts, because those were duties that had been handled by Melissa previously, and we felt like we didn't really have an internal person that could do those with the time constraints that they have. Darren can do them. He's done them before really well, but he has lots of other things on his plate. So working with a local company to provide some of our marketing needs, and they're doing a really good job at that contract.
Social media, print media,
radio, some videos,
okay.
all of those things. And, they're pretty skilled and experienced.
I would just like to say that I am very, very happy for Zoe because we love her, but I am also very sad for youth programs.
Yes.
I'm sad for the pool.
Well, the good news is this position, the events and recreation coordinator position, is we have budgeted about 5 to 10 hours a week for that position to provide some support in the pool with helping administer some aquatic fitness classes and providing some lifeguard training support for Lindsay, so that Lindsay has just a little bit more support. So
I think it's really exciting.
She'll be around. We also are very close to settling in or finalizing an agreement with a new grant writer. So we have one that's much more local. She's based in Portland right now. She's given us some writing samples and some references that turned out really well. And I think we'll have an agreement in place in the next few days for her to start work for us and fundraising for the SRC and some of the other grants that we could be taking advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
Is her compensation based on hourly rate or based on share of the grants she manages to bring?
Yeah, we haven't actually. I just had a meeting today with her to talk about some of those options. The previous grant writer that we had, is a flat rate that we compensated her every month. But what I'd like to do is something like that, but with a added bonus of a percentage of each grant acquired up to a certain amount, then they'll receive back.
Well, so long as that doesn't cause her to only pursue the big grants.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe I should touch base with you guys about that. But yeah, I think it's a good fit at least, and we'll kind of hone in on that contract. Those are my only updates. Just wanted to remind you of some of our events coming up. March 18th is our family dance at the SRC, and then March 23rd, which is a Thursday, we'll have our board meeting and sounds like some budget committee interviews, so please hold that time, or we'll make arrangements for you to zoom in. And then Ship and Savor is on Sunday, May 7th. The last brief thing, if Darren wants to stand up, we got new play in Teesside apparel. We've only had it available basically in gray, and then we did a staff issue of a white shirt. But we got green sweatshirts and then red t-shirts.
Red long sleeve.
Red t-shirts and then a
I see.
well, you got it in here. Heathered red long sleeve shirts. So
I like that.
Oh, very nice.
Very nice, yes, and there's the back.
I want one in teal.
That was one of the colors.
I think an
So
extra
what
large.
color
My
do the
understanding is that's the only color.
T-shirts are in red and heather red for the long sleeve.
Nice.
Or do I have it back?
We can stop in person.
You can stop in and we'll have them available and on display. We're getting them all inventoried today, and yeah.
Yay.
Any
Merch.
old sweatshirts, so
It's surprising how
Let
many
me
people
know.
wanted the gray, or want the gray only, but,
Wait, which one's?
I like the
Oh, the
gray.
old.
the old, yeah, it's just like the original.
I have people that want the gray.
Yeah, I did too, but, we, you know,
Not available.
I like it.
I have two.
Gotta change it up every 5 years.
I'll be
A lot of
here.
a lot of our staff wanted the you know, bolder colors that aren't gray. I kept hearing, we have enough gray around here, we don't need more gray. Anyways, those are my updates, so, looking forward to board comment, and appreciate you all bearing through a long meeting, but productive one.
Okay, board comments, Kyle?
Okay, first, I won't be here in person at the next meeting because, I'll be in Texas with, at a swim meet. But along that line, Dad brag here, last weekend was the Colorado State, swimming championship for age swimming, and my granddaughter is a state champion in the 400 IM, and my grandson has 4 state championship medals. So I'm just busting my buttons over
So
here.
these are lifeguards at the Park and Rec?
Oh, well, you know what? When they come this summer, I was gonna take them in for lessons.
Okay.
Because I think Cameron would be
Maybe
good.
they should be giving.
Yeah, give a deal on
Capable.
So, I went to the Fascination tournament, and almost all of it was awesome, you know, except for the fact that I had to roll the ball and try to hit one. But Darren, I just want to comment on Darren. He did such a good job as the MC. I think everybody really enjoyed it, and thank you, Darren. It was for a good cause, and it worked out. And then, we had a commenter today, Marty, and I don't know whether her points are accurate or not, but I think, out of fairness to her, we need to respond to her questions and figure out a process to do that, because I think the worst thing we can do is not communicate with our patrons, and I think she deserves at least a letter explaining, you know, what it is, or maybe a conversation with Skylar, or whatever. I don't care how it happens, but she deserves that feedback. And also the Broadway Field project team, I'm really glad we got those guys there. Appreciate their expertise, and a lot of the stuff is, I mean, I feel like a chicken at a card trick when I'm listening to all this stuff, because it's just bothering me. Not sure I understand everything, but I trust that they know what they're doing, so. That's all I have.
So, thank you, Kyle. I want to congratulate Isaiah. I want to thank Haley, and I'm glad to get to know her a little better. Thanks for her presentation. I appreciate Marty being our first public comment in quite a while. I'm grateful for somebody taking the time and energy to make a statement. And I do think it is critical that we respond, because a lot of what I heard was not quite up to, you know, was not quite accurate. And so I think when it's not addressed fairly and appropriately, it just grows. And so I think it's important to somehow, you know, present the information, but, you know, how she receives that is going to be up to her, but we need to respond and give her the accurate information, so she's aware. But I appreciate her taking the time.
And if we need to clean the pool or whatever, I mean, she was really concerned about the pool vacuum.
Yeah,
I mean,
the pool sweeper, that's a curious thing.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that, but staff can.
Yeah.
You know, and so I want to appreciate the amount of the volume of projects that are going on, and the amount of excitement and, you know, pressure to make our, you know, mission and vision statement, you know, bolder. And I'm very grateful for even the tedium of how to detail this and that. And I appreciate change that's coming, because I think nothing so permanent as change, but that can be a positive thing. So I think it's exciting to look forward to those changes that are coming, and I am grateful to be part of this board. I wanted to catch you up on something personal. I had told my son, who invited me to move to Chicago in January, that I would take the month of January and February to make a decision, and I am not moving, so I will be sticking around. So Kyle and Catherine, I want to tell you. Well, I want to tell you that I'm willing to, let's see if I can amend my statement right now. I want to tell you that I will be supportive. I'll be standing on the corner with whatever literature you want, and waving a sign and waving at, people who drive by, because 2 years from now, we get, the rest of us get to do this. So I think it's important to be supportive of each other, because I think, the most incredible thing is how positive this board is, and how we support the mission and vision statement of this special district. And I'm grateful that we have the team, that includes Darren sitting over there in that green shirt, which I have to go by. And that's a tongue-in-cheek joke. He has my computer. I'm so grateful for his expertise. I'm grateful for Justin. We're reaching out to the community to help out with a special project, and he is going to find a way to make that work. And I'm grateful for Skylar stepping forward and leading us. And I can't say enough good, positive things about him, and I'm ready to defend him, period, because we're very lucky to have the team that we have here, and I think that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Mike?
Great. You're so eloquent. How can I say more than that? I was grateful to be able to go to the SDAO conference. Kyle, it's too bad you couldn't join me. I had a beautiful suite all to myself.
Oh.
But
if I could have pulled it off, I would.
But I was lonely. I brought back some things. I think the theme of the conference was advocacy, really, and the big push was to get in touch, with our legislative people in the state. We've developed a policy. We have to be ready for emergencies like the pandemic taught us that we needed to get in line to get money, but special districts got passed over when the CARES Act was passed, and a bunch of other little things dribbled out. Anyway, I have 3 of these posters. I haven't got one in my house, but we need to keep in mind and keep in touch with our legislators. You can keep it or not. But the breakouts were very timely. Equity and inclusion. I went to a very timely breakout on real estate and land use, which I was able to bring to the table immediately. I was sending text pictures of all the screenshots to Celeste as it happened. And we met our advocates who are professional lobbyists for special districts. Mark Landauer, I'm trying to remember the other lady's name, very professional. They have very astute, very... Yes.
Hasina.
Yeah. Hasina, that's her name. And they led that session, and it was very informative. A lot of good networking, great awards banquet, great to see what other special districts are doing. I even won a drawing. I got a door prize. What you did. Anyway, it was a good conference. I got to meet David Olbrich. A whole bunch of people who sat at the awards banquet with me. It was really nice to chat with them, and it was good. Very good.
Thanks for going, Mike.
Yeah.
I thank you for it.
And yay, next year is here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, it is
Next
here?
year it's
Okay.
here. There's no
Yeah.
reason we all shouldn't be there.
Catherine?
I'm gonna keep mine short. First, apologies for not being there. Thank you for allowing me to participate remotely. Thank you, Celeste, for stepping up and running the meeting. I appreciated that all of our partners were able to attend tonight to provide their valuable feedback. I think it's just good to get everybody in the room. So, thank you.
All right, and I will keep mine brief also. I just want to, in response to the thing about responding to Marty, this may have gotten lost, but as part of our board commitments, previously, we actually did outline a process that we should probably revisit, because the process has been, is that I respond, just because communications is kind of my jam, and that I respond and keep the chair in the loop if it's anything outside of sort of a thank you for your comment and clarifying what the process is or what the role is. So I actually did exchange emails with Marty, 3 or 4 emails, I think, back and forth on these topics, and gave guidance how to access information, accurate information through staff.
See if she wants to participate in our strategic planning process or any of these, because we need naysayers and positive people as well.
Yeah, I agree, and I will follow up on the comments tonight. I didn't know what the comments, so I can do the same and do the same type of thing. And I don't think we can actually CC the whole board on the communications, because then it becomes a de facto public meeting requirement, right? So I can't.
Well, you can send information, you just can't deliver it.
Yeah, I don't know. I need clarification, because I thought that, but yes.
Now, if you sent out a draft and we all commented on the draft, that would be.
But I could just keep people informed. I could
Yeah,
just CC everybody.
Yeah.
And so that would be fine.
Once the letter is
You may
signed.
want to, what has happened in the past, and I think why we've tried as a general practice to avoid that, is then the community member replies all, and then there's a back and
Oh, I see.
And so maybe a BCC would be more appropriate,
I could
because
do
then
that.
they cannot reply all.
Or just send it off and then send us a copy.
And forward it, So I'll
Yeah.
take on both of those. That way you're in the loop of the communications that are going out when I'm responding.
It seems
And if
like-
somebody else wants to take it on, it's fine. It's just,
Well, it seems like there's a form that Erica had and I was involved with, saying, yes, that's a great form. And it had to do with how to respond to complaints, so that it was a formatted.
It was kind of a who should be responding to complaints.
yeah.
Was it like
It was a triage of, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think Celeste is she has a great rapport with Marty. There's been lots of back and forth. I think Celeste is responding to her concerns with maybe some input from Skylar, because I don't know the whole vacuum situation, other than they were going to work on parts. So, maybe there's more to the story now, but, yeah, I think Celeste, and then maybe just passing on the information that was shared, so we're all on the same page.
I'm pretty careful. I don't give opinions out. I don't give my personal opinions out, and try to stick to sort of just the facts, Jack, and thank people, and keeping it civil, and thank people for their comments. So, because I agree with you, Kyle, I think it is important that we give people the courtesy of responding, because it creates more trouble, frankly, for us if we don't respond. Yeah. So that was, and then my only other board comment, I wanted to give a shout to Mike, with all this board, with all of our interactions with the school district and on these projects. I've appreciated you, Mike, and your willingness to meet and to sort of try to figure out what we're doing as far as and what we need to cover, because Mike has a lot of knowledge both about the history of the properties and building. And also, I'm giving a final shout out because I'd really like us to recruit some great budget committee members. So I think I'm giving a final push to all of us to go out and try to recruit some good people for that, because I think it's a good way. It's another way to have engagement.
People different from us.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And with that, meeting adjourned.
If you say so.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, thank you.